Chapter 164. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. The great educator, Iron Ox, once said that to deal with brats, especially the unruly ones, one had to defeat them at their most confident level. Literature, building. In the game, White Emperor was most confident in his strength. After all, this guy was Mingdu's enemy. If he didn't have some skill, then he wouldn't have been able to do so. Since Bai Di had initiated a duel, and there were so many people watching, Wang Yu was also a person who cared about his reputation. Although bullying a child was a little unfair, there was no such thing as big or small in a game. Hence, Wang Yu accepted it. Sure, you can pick any place you want. Wang Yu smiled. Actually, this was good too. People with real skills usually did not listen to commands. This would teach this kid a lesson so that he would not cause trouble in the instance dungeon. Boss Iron Ox. He's just a kid. Don't lower yourself to his level. Counterattack Tiger was in an awkward situation. He was the one who brought Bai Di here because Bai Di was an expert. If he knew that Mingdu was the legendary Li Zichong, he would never have brought Bai Di here. Wang Yu smiled and waved his hand. Don't worry, I know how to control my strength. I won't kill him. Bai Di looked at Wang Yu and said disdainfully, "Don't look down on me. I don't need to find a place to deal with you. This place is enough. Take this." Bai Di was indeed a scumbag who was as famous as Mingdu. Before he finished speaking, he grabbed the wine on the table and splashed it at Wang Yu's face. Then, while Wang Yu dodged, he turned around and pulled away from Wang Yu. Then, he turned around and drew his bow. This kid's movements were smooth. From splashing the wine to pulling away to kite, it took less than 2 seconds. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. Xuanjin and the others were all experts with their eyes on the top of their heads. Seeing Emperor Bai's actions, they could not help but be slightly shocked. It seemed like this kid really had the ability to compete with Mingdu. Wang Yu smiled and calmly grabbed Emperor Bai's arrow with his left hand. A white gas rolled out from his right hand. Emperor Bai had just knocked his second arrow on the bow when he was caught in front of Wang Yu. Emperor Bai was shocked. Seeing that Wang Yu's palm was about to land, Emperor Bai's fingers twisted slightly, and the arrow in his hand shot out. Duong. There was the sound of an arrow hitting a wooden pole. Bai Di's arrow had hit Wang Yu's palm at the crucial moment. Wang Yu was forced to retreat. Godly Archer's rare skill, Shock Arrow, knocks the target back and stuns for 1 second. At the same time, it causes 50% movement speed reduction and 150% physical damage. At the same time that Wang Yu was knocked out, Bai Di took a step back and pulled away from Wang Yu. He took out 3 arrows and knocked them on his bow. Pong! The 3 arrows formed a straight line and shot towards Wang Yu. Rapid Arrow, level 10 Godly Archer skill, can cause triple damage to the target. This is interesting. Just as the 3 arrows were about to hit Wang Yu's stun effect was over. Then, Emperor Bai saw a flash of light, and Wang Yu disappeared. Then Emperor Bai suddenly felt his neck being grabbed by a large hand. Emperor Bai's eyes were filled with disbelief. The two of them fought at a fast pace. Although Emperor Bai had used a lot of moves from kiting to being caught to escaping, it had only been a few seconds. Emperor Bai was an expert, so he thought that even with Wang Yu's reputation, it would take a lot of effort to deal with him. Who knew that in just a few seconds, he would be caught in someone's hands twice? How is it? Are you convinced? Wang Yu asked Emperor Bai with a smile. I'm convinced. Emperor Bai nodded blankly, still in shock. Emperor Bai had used all his control skills, attack skills, and movement skills. Now that he was in Wang Yu's hands, there was no way he could escape. Moreover, Bai Di only had focus shot and homing arrow left, while Wang Yu had only used 2 skills. None of these 2 skills were offensive skills. An archer with no skills had no chance of winning against a grandmaster of combat who was at full skill level in close combat. Then can you and Oli put down first? Wang Yu asked. All right. Emperor Bai was reluctant, but he knew that he was no match for Wang Yu, so he reluctantly agreed. What about you, Old Li? Wang Yu turned to Mingdu. I don't care. Mingdu shrugged. I can deal with this brat anytime. You. Emperor Bai was about to explode again, But when he saw the look in Wang Yu's eyes, he immediately calmed down. Emperor Bai and Ming Du had been enemies for a long time, so they naturally knew each other very well. He knew that Ming Du was not the kind of person who would listen to others easily. So when he saw that Ming Du had no objections to Wang Yu's words, his fear of Wang Yu increased. As they were talking, a petite figure walked into the tavern and asked the person at the door, "Are the people from Qianjin here?" "Here." Wang Yu looked and saw that it was Yang Na, so he waved and greeted. Seeing that the last person to arrive was also a girl, the people from Qianjin couldn't help but be moved again. There were 20 people and 9 girls, which was nearly a 1:1 ratio of men to women. How luxurious this lineup was. Emperor Bai rushed over and said shamelessly, "Sister, my name is Emperor Bai. You can call me Xiao Bai. We are both archers. Could it be that we are fated? Let's add each other as friends." To place one's pride looked at Emperor Bai, dumbfounded, and murmured, "F***ck. So powerful, I envy him." Wang Yu laughed. "Don't envy him. That girl is not to be trifled with. TSK. It's just a girl." To place one's pride thought that Wang Yu was just scaring him. Although there were many female players who were powerful, none of the top 10 experts were women. From this point, it could be seen that in terms of combat, even in the game, female players were still weaker than male players. Seeing that to place one's pride didn't believe him, Wang Yu didn't explain further. 20 people were finally gathered, and Wang Yu created a team and added everyone into it. Level 15? Is that okay? After joining the team, Counterattack Tiger was a little stunned when he saw the level of his teammates. Of course, he wasn't talking about Bei Ming Yuyu. Bei Ming Yuyu was also an expert. No matter how decadent she was, her skills wouldn't be bad. It was also not Mu Zixian, who had the halo of the main character's family. Counterattack Tiger was talking about Li Shui and the others. Since Li Shui completed the alchemy mission, the girls rarely leveled up. Now, Molly was only level 16, and the others were all level 15. It's just to make up the numbers. Wang Yu said, "They're our Qianjin's logistics team." "Oh." Counterattack Tiger nodded slightly, but in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a little conflicted about Wang Yu forcefully stuffing people in. Counterattack Tiger was a very pure player. He wouldn't unconditionally accept the fact that Li Shui and the others were noobs just because they were girls. After all, hell was not a joke, and the team would be wiped if they were not careful. The system wouldn't lower the dungeon's difficulty just because you looked good, right? Li Shui was a very smart woman. Of course, she could hear that Counterattack Tiger was looking down on them, so she stood up and said, "Us 4 sisters might have low levels, but thanks to Brother Iron Ox and the various bosses of Qianjin, they gave us a place to settle down. We know our own strength best. We didn't want to be a burden in this dungeon. But Nyoga thinks highly of us and let us come and freeload the experience from the experts. We don't dare to take advantage of everyone. These potions are made by us, and we can't help with anything else, so we can only contribute to the team." Saying that, Li Shui took out a pile of prepared potions and placed them on the table. Li Shui's meaning was very clear. "We know we can't do it, but without us, your team wouldn't be able to do it. Now that I'm taking out these potions as a thank you gift, if we really fail, don't let us take the blame because of our levels." Now it was awkward. The counterattacking tiger said in a panic, I didn't mean that." The counterattacking tiger was also a master. If this was spread out, he would be laughed at by others for teasing the little girl. At this moment, not only was Counterattack Tiger a little embarrassed, but Bloody Rose and the others also looked extremely embarrassed. Li Shui obviously said the word "settle down" to Bloody Rose and the others. Back then, Li Shui and the others followed Bloody Rose to settle down, but in the end, that incident happened. If it wasn't for Qianjin, these 4 girls would have been in a terrible situation. So, Li Shui always hated them. Women. The Qianjin people looked at each other and laughed. They laughed in the guild channel. "Lil Shui, you're really ruthless. This is going to be fun." Li Shui smiled and said, "No matter what, we're Qianjin people. How can we let others look down on us?" Seeing that the situation was a little awkward, Wuji came out and said, "Lil Shui didn't mean anything else. These potions are our Qianjin specialties. Although they aren't anything good, They can save your lives in critical moments. Everyone, take them. Counterattack Tiger and Bloody Rose did not move. Instead, it was Bai D who went over to take one with a smile. Huh? Holding the potion in his hand, Bai D was stunned. Then, he reached for another one. Qua! Cha! A bolt of lightning flashed in front of Bai D's finger. Bai D was so scared that his face turned pale. Mingdu glared at Bai D and said, "Don't you have any shame? One per person. Don't even think about taking more." Bai D glared at Mingdu, then turned to Counterattack Tiger and said, "Quick, take it. It's good stuff." "Isn't it just a potion?" Counterattack Tiger smiled faintly. Bai D showed the potion in his hand. Counterattack Tiger was dumbfounded. He exclaimed, "This is an intermediate potion." Bai D quickly covered Counterattack Tiger's mouth and scolded, "Can you keep your voice down? Don't you know that you can get rich quietly?" However, Counterattack Tiger's voice was already heard. Bloody Rose and the others were shocked when they heard Counterattack Tiger's voice. Chapter 165. In ancient times, there was a saying that went, "Before the troops and horses move, the rations and fodder go first." Now that there were airplanes and cannons everywhere, this saying seemed to be outdated. However, it was still useful in this game where cold weapons were the background. Rations and fodder were the so-called supplies, and potions were the most important supplies. As such, potioneering became one of the 3 most popular life professions in the game. Everyone knew that one had to be at least an advanced potioneering to produce an intermediate health potion. However, the skills of life professions were rather difficult to obtain. It had not even been a month since the game started, and even intermediate potioneering was rare, let alone advanced potioneering. The best potion sold in the potion shop was the beginner health potion. Intermediate health potions were almost non-existent in the outside world. As the saying goes, a rare commodity deserves to be hoarded. An intermediate health potion could definitely be sold for more than 50 silver coins. Bloody Rose and the other 2 did not look too good. They never expected that the only person in Rebirth who could produce an intermediate health potion used to be a member of their guild. Moreover, he was a gold-collecting member that they had never even looked at properly. In the end, he was chased away by them. At this moment, Bloody Rose's heart was filled with resentment towards the Bird of Paradise. This B** star was unable to accomplish anything and was good at ruining things. If it wasn't for his audacity, how would such a high-level talent end up in someone else's guild? Now that the girls had joined the Quanjin sect, not only would they not return to the Rose Guild, but even if they did, who would dare to poach them? Looking at Bloody Rose's uncertain expression, Li Shui smiled and said, "Big sis, just take it. We don't have much else to offer." The Chuanjin members were speechless. Li Shui's smile was like a spring breeze, but it sent a chill down everyone's spines. "Thank you, Xiao Shui." After Bloody Rose kept the potion, she said to Li Shui, "I'm really sorry about what happened back then." "What happened? I've forgotten about it." Li Shui smiled. The Chuanjin members felt a chill down their spines again. Really? Did she really forget? Women are so scary. Seeing Bloody Rose's expression, Wuji came out to smooth things over. "All right, it's getting late. Let's go." "Okay. Thank you." Li Shui nodded at Wang Yu and the others from the Quanjun, sect with tears in her eyes. Others might not know what Li Shui's thanks meant, but how could Wang Yu and the others not know? Li Shui and the other 3 just wanted to earn money in peace. However, when they were in Rose Flower, the girls were wronged. No one stood up for them, and they were even chased by a bunch of people. In the end, no one dared to take them in, and they were almost beaten to death by the Blood Alliance. It was Chuanjin who protected them and gave them a chance to be reborn, allowing them to look up to the existence that they had looked up to in the past. Only the people involved knew the bitterness of this. A team of 20 people was still very eye-catching. They majestically arrived at the entrance of the Scarlet Church, shocking many passers-by. F***CK. Who are these people? 20 people forming a group. What are they doing? Lower your voice. Don't you know the people in Chuanjin? By the looks of it, they're either farming a nightmare dungeon or a hell dungeon. Hell Codex? Are you kidding? We can't even clear an elite dungeon, and they dare to talk about a hell dungeon? They're Chuanjin. Is there anything they don't dare to do? Tisk tisk. Everyone was shocked again. The Hell Mode dungeon was different from other dungeons. Since other dungeons were just projections, the entrance was a teleportation circle. Beside the teleportation circle was a blue stone tablet that recorded a person's clearing record. Hell Mode was supposed to be farming monsters, so there was a dark red door in front of the teleportation circle. Wang Yu followed the others' instructions and walked over to push open the door. System notification. Do you want to enter Hell, Scarlet Church? Yes. After Wang Yu confirmed, everyone's vision turned black and they appeared in the dungeon. System notification. You discovered Hell, Scarlet Church, obtained 1,000 experience. System notification. You accepted the quest Descent of Darkness, quest rank A. Cleared Hell, Scarlet Church Instance Dungeon 0 of 1. Current Hell, Scarlet Church Instance Dungeon Progress 0. Completion 0. Status still in progress. Completion was a special setting of the dungeon in Rebirth. After clearing many dungeons, they would know that some bosses could be skipped. When major guilds were setting dungeon records, they would always skip all the parts that could be skipped and go straight to the final boss. However, in the game, every dungeon was the fruit of the designer's blood and sweat. There were many hidden parts and special bosses. If they blindly fought for records, wouldn't the designer's efforts go to waste? Therefore, the system would evaluate the completion based on the player's development of the dungeon. The higher the completion, the better the rewards. The Hell Mode Scarlet Church was even more depressing and terrifying than the Elite Mode. The blood-colored moon appeared and disappeared from time to time. On the mountain in the distance, there was a shrill sound of the wind. The smell of decay spread over, sending chills down everyone's spine. After opening the dungeon map, everyone realized that the Scarlet Church had changed a lot. In the Elite Mode, the Scarlet Church only had the front yard, the hall, and the backyard. There were also only 3 bosses. In the Hell Mode, the entire Scarlet Church was displayed. It was at least 3 times bigger than the one they saw before. After Wuji looked at the dungeon's introduction, he said to everyone, the monsters inside are all around level 40. Those with bad equipment stand at the back. Don't run around. Mu Zixian, Li Shui, and the others stood at the back of the team obediently. North Ciyu also wanted to walk to the back, but she was pulled back by Ming Du. Old you, where are you going? To the back, North Ciyu said. My equipment isn't good, so I might not be able to break through the monster's defense. Ming Du looked at the girls at the back and smiled. I didn't expect you to be so impatient. All right, you go. I heard that the cure for broken up is to have a relationship. North Ciyu's face fell again. She stood beside Ming Du and said, I'm not going. I'll stay here. Hee hee. That's more like a man. Stand in front of me. Don't let the monsters bite me. North Ciyu was speechless. She suddenly felt the urge to kill someone. Dao Xue, go open the door. After everyone was in position, Wuji ordered Dao Xue's sword. Dao Xue, sword, quickly walked to the entrance of the church, took out a small stick from his bag, and stabbed it into the door lock. Clack! The door lock fell to the ground. A group of black bats flew out of the church, and a thick black aura floated out of the church's courtyard. Who is it? Are you disturbing the peace of the dead? Just as everyone walked into the courtyard, a gloomy voice suddenly sounded. Then, skeleton soldiers crawled out of the ground in the courtyard. The bones of these skeleton soldiers were jet black and gleaming. At the same time, one could vaguely see the inscriptions carved on the bones. The sabers in their hands were no longer rusty and broken sabers, but sharp battle blades. Skeleton Warrior, 35. Elite, HP, 100000 MP. 1000 skills. Smash, behead, 100,000 HP. Bloody Rose exclaimed when she saw the Skeleton Warrior's attributes. The monsters in the Hell Dungeon actually had more HP than the small bosses outside. What's wrong? Is it difficult? Wang Yu turned his head and asked. Wang Yu had seen many monsters with 100,000 HP, and this lady was making a fuss about nothing. No. Should we lure the archers over one by one? Bloody Rose asked carefully. This was the standard strategy for high-level dungeons. Bloody Rose was the leader of a guild after all, and she had plenty of dungeon experience. Chun Xiang, who was at the side, looked into the courtyard and smiled. There are only 15 skeleton warriors in total. It's too troublesome to lure them over one by one. Let's bring them over in one wave. In one wave, Bloody Rose was shocked. Those are level 35 elite monsters? Won't we get wiped out in one wave? Dungeon monsters were usually stronger, so in any game, dungeons were always done step by step and cleared bit by bit. Bloody Rose's strategy was called monster pulling. She lured the monsters out one by one, cleared them, and finally fought the boss. It was safe, and easy to learn. One-wave rushing was also a type of dungeon clearing. There was no technical content, and it was about fighting head-on. If you don't succeed, you die. Generally, there were only two types of players who played one-wave rushing: newbies and experts. Newbies did not know how to clear dungeons, and they liked to rush around blindly, unknowingly killing themselves. Experts, on the other hand, relied on strong equipment and superb skills to crush all the monsters in the scene in one go. Of course, the success of one-wave rushing was mostly seen in beginner dungeons by experts. For example, the dungeon monsters in Rebirth increased with the player's level. That way, even experts would find it difficult to kill the dungeon monsters in one wave. Moreover, in the current game, most players' equipment was trash. Even if it was a normal elite dungeon, very few people dared to do one-wave rushing. Wasn't it suicide to do one-wave rushing when exploring a hell dungeon? Chun Xiang ignored Bloody Rose and asked the others in Xuanzhen, "How is it? Do you have any objections to one-wave rushing? Cut the crap. Hurry up and attack." The people in Xuanzhen urged, as if this was a common occurrence. Counterattack Tiger frowned. Although he was not sure, he did not say anything. White Emperor had always been a self-proclaimed expert. Seeing that Mingdu had a card up his sleeve, he naturally did not want to admit defeat. Bai Mingyu narrowed her eyes and turned invisible. She was level 15 anyway, so it did not matter if she slacked off. Chun Xiang waved the staff in his hand, and a cloud of green, poisonous fog was thrown into the group of monsters. Plague, a level 20 Dark Warlock skill. It could slow down enemy targets in a small area and cause continuous damage. Chun Xiang's staff did not stop, and the poisonous fog in his hand continued to be thrown. After a while, all the skeletal warriors in the courtyard were hit. One by one, they swayed and slowly moved toward the group. Chapter 166. Counterattack Tiger, Bloody Rose, and the others were very nervous when they saw the skeletal warriors slowly approaching. This was a level 35 elite monster. Under the suppression of levels, the combined attack of 15 monsters could definitely disregard any tank profession at the current stage. What made them even more uncertain was that the people of Xuanzhen did not have the awareness of being experts at all. They stood in a very disorderly manner. Wuji, a healer, actually stood in front of the warriors. Counterattack Tiger could not help but gulp when he saw the various monsters in front of him. He felt as though he had boarded a pirate ship. Everyone retreat. Retreat to the door. The skeletons were getting closer. Wuji ordered as he trotted out of the courtyard. Outside, Counterattack Tiger was puzzled. Would the strength of these skeletons decrease when they were outside? At this time, the people of Xuanzhen and the girls had already started to retreat. Counterattack Tiger and the others did not stop and turned to run out of the courtyard. When everyone was standing still, Counterattack Tiger realized that Chun Xiang was still standing at the door and had not moved. Warlocks as tanks. What kind of gameplay was this? Warlocks were the same as priests. Although they focused more on constitution and intelligence, they were still cloth-armored professions. If they were facing magic monsters, it would be reasonable for warlocks to stand at the front. However, the skeletal warriors were standard monsters with physical attacks. Wasn't it suicide to stand at the front? Paladin, use a bayonet. Prepare to attack. Wuji ordered again. Bloody Rose had already guessed what Wuji was thinking when he ordered them to retreat. After receiving the order, she cast an attack aura on everyone without saying anything. Counterattack Tiger's face was full of tears. Attack? Attack your sister. We're all going to die. Although the people of the Quanjun sect were famous for their erratic thinking, they were still a group of experts. Therefore, the counterattacking tiger had a glimmer of hope for them. Who would have thought that this group of people really lived up to their reputation and didn't disappoint? The skeletal warriors finally moved to the door. They raised their swords and slashed at Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang did not panic. He took a step back and waved his staff. 6 imps appeared in front of Chun Xiang out of thin air and blocked the door. What kind of skill is that? Counterattack Tiger was stunned. Chun Xiang's summoning imps weren't a secret in the eyes of Yu Huiqing's players, but very few people in other cities knew about it. After all, Xuanzhen's various videos appeared on Yu Huiqing's forums. Most players in other cities knew that Xuanzhen's people were strong, but they didn't know why they were strong. This is a summoning imp. Bai Di was a true expert. He immediately recognized the shameless skill that had made people tremble in fear during the closed beta. His face was filled with shock. Young people were always impetuous, so Emperor Bai had always been arrogant. Even among all the experts in Xuanzhen, he only looked up to 2 of them. One was Wang Yu, who had defeated him, and the other was his nemesis, Ming Du. As for the others, Emperor Bai did not say it out loud, but in his heart, he looked down on them. Who would have thought that this wretched-looking uncle in a green hat would use a legendary skill? If it was just this skill, Emperor Bai would at most think of Chun Xiang as someone who had gotten lucky. However, Chun Xiang's mechanics made Emperor Bai admire him from the bottom of his heart. After Chun Xiang took a step back and summoned imps to block the skeleton warriors, the skeleton warriors' aggro was locked onto Chun Xiang. The skeleton warriors wanted to get past the imps to chase after Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang took another step back, then used distortion to position himself behind the skeleton soldier, trapping it in the doorway. Yes, it wasn't fixed, it was stuck. In any online game, monsters would be stuck in terrain. This was because the monsters had a minimum distance to attack. The principle was similar to a grandmaster of combat. If the monsters were too close, they wouldn't be able to attack due to their long arms. So when the monsters were stuck in the terrain, these brainless monsters could only move back and forth. They couldn't attack at all. This created an opportunity for the players to attack. On the other hand, Chun Xiang had actually used 2 skills to forcefully create the effect of a chokehold. It should be known that the distortion skill required a prerequisite skill. Hence, in order to achieve this, not only did one have to grasp the right timing, but one also needed to have superb judgment. What shocked Emperor Bai the most was that Chun Xiang had actually managed to get all 15 monsters stuck in one go. Didn't that mean that every time Chun Xiang attacked, he had taken into account the movement speed and distance of all the monsters? So when he reached the door, all the skeletal warriors happened to be stuck in the narrow space between the imps and the distorted barrier. If that was the case, how terrifying was the mental calculation ability of a warlock? This wasn't a skill in a game, it was a talent that came with it in real life. The more skilled one was, the more they could see the technical content of this. For example, fish in the North Sea and counterattack tiger were just as shocked as White Emperor when they saw this scene. Even an expert like Yang Na could not help but look at Chun Xiang. As for Blood Rose and the other girls, they weren't skilled enough. All they saw was that Chun Xiang had used 2 skills and wasn't hit by the monsters. Don't just stand there. Hurry up and attack. Wu Ji shouted at everyone and took the lead to throw out a holy light orb. The difficulty of creating a terrain to trap monsters was in the first wave. If the first wave was stuck, the rest would be easy. Distortion's existence effect was 6 seconds, the fixed effect was 3 seconds, and the cooldown was 8 seconds. Moreover, the stuck skeleton warriors couldn't attack. In other words, these skeleton warriors could only counterattack for 2 seconds in 8 seconds. With the low AI warriors' attack frequency, they could only swing once in 2 seconds. After level 20, the summoned imps had the same amount of HP as Chun Xiang, who had added points to his constitution. After enhanced constitution, their HP increased by another 50%. Moreover, Dark Warlocks had a shameless life-sharing skill after changing professions at level 20. It was just 8 seconds. It was just a sprinkle of water. Chun Xiang easily trapped these skeletons at the entrance. The others were attacked by the Retribution Paladins, which had the effect of defense break and damage bonus. It didn't take long before the 15 skeleton warriors were smashed into a pile of bones. Since the start of the fight, all the skeleton warriors had been killed. The priest hadn't cast any healing spells. Counterattack Tiger couldn't believe that there was such a thing as killing monsters without taking any damage. Next was looting. As Chun Xiang had contributed the most, everyone agreed to give this opportunity to Chun Xiang. Even the new experts didn't have any objections. After all, Chun Xiang's previous move was too shocking. Bone Blade, Warblade, Silver, Attack, 22-27 Magic, 0-4+7 Strength, 2 Agility Heavy Strike Enhancement. Increases the effect of heavy strikes by 50%. Dark Corrosion. Normal attacks have a 10% chance of reducing the enemy's speed by 20%. Profession Requirement. Warrior, Paladin Level Requirement. 25 Skeleton Hand X5. Quest Item. As expected of the Hell Instance Dungeon, even the small monsters dropped silver equipment. Although the attributes of this weapon were a bit rubbish, the drop rate still surprised all the experts. They were even more excited about the monsters later. According to the requirements of the class, the Bone Blade was thrown to Ma Li. This kind of rubbish silver equipment was naturally not worth the attention of these experts. The only one who was interested was Bloody Rose. He felt guilty towards these girls, so he chose to give it up. "Who's this?" Wuji pointed at the skeleton hand and asked. There is only one reason for a quest item to appear in an instance dungeon, and that was if someone in the team had a quest. However, Wuji asked 3 times, but no one answered. So, Wuji picked it up and threw it to Wang Yu. "Why are you giving it to me?" Wang Yu asked in confusion. "Because you're the only one who's new to the game. You don't know if there's anyone else who has a quest." "New player? There's such a new player?" Those who didn't know Wang Yu revealed a look of horror. In the eyes of the Chuanjin hierarch, a new player was invincible. Just what kind of expert was he? Wang Yu looked at the quest window, blushed, and accepted the skeleton hand. Quest: Restore the Martial Scholar's Glory. Required materials: Seed of Darkness 0/5, Demon's Wings 0/5, Skeleton Hand 5/5, Nun's Heart of the Fallen 0/1. Should we fight the dog? Wuji asked for everyone's opinion. Everyone in the team had fought the Scarlet Church before. It was no secret that thieves could avoid the Hellhound in the courtyard by picking locks. "Fight, I have a quest." Wang Yu raised his hand. Just now, when Wang Yu was looking at the quest window, he saw the Legacy Journey quest in the corner. The quest prompt was to defeat the Hellhound. "Okay, you go pull the monster." Wuji pointed at the Hellhound that was sleeping soundly in the corner. "Okay." Wang Yu nodded and walked into the courtyard. Before he took 2 steps, the entire courtyard suddenly shook like an earthquake. In the middle of the shaking, a crack appeared on the ground in the middle of the courtyard. Red flames rushed into the sky from the crack, and then a huge skeleton climbed out of the crack. The skeleton was 2 to 3 meters tall, wearing black armor, holding a scepter in one hand and a giant sword in the other. On the skeleton's huge head, there was also a crown. Undead Monarch Paladin, level 40, Silver Boss, Elite, HP, 350000 MP, 20,000 skills, Hellfire, Devour, Fatal, Whitebone War at the same time. An instance dungeon quest appeared in the team's quest window. Immortal Knight. Kill Undead Monarch Illidan 0/1 quest reward. 15% completion character introduction. Illidan was originally the noblest knight of Yuhuiqing. When darkness fell, he turned to the Dark Army for eternal life. The holy sword that once represented glory became a bloody butcher's knife. Shameless and lowly mortals, you will pay for your foolish actions. After Illidan finished reciting the system's lines, he waved a scepter in his hand. A green ball of hellfire flew out from the scepter and flew towards the back of the team. Its target was none other than Mu Zixian. Chapter 167. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. They were all level 15, but Mu Zixian was the last to enter the game, so her equipment was the worst out of everyone. She was still wearing the beginner's equipment from the beginner's village. Illidan was a boss in manual mode. This kind of high-level boss had its own unique aggro system. Generally speaking, it would pick the easiest target to kill. Apart from that, Illidan also had a special hatred system. As a former knight, Illidan now hated the knight profession very much. Otherwise, even if Mu Zetian's equipment was the worst, a knight with white equipment would be harder to kill than a priest with green equipment. Of course, Illidan was a level 40 boss. There was no difference between a level 15 knight and a priest in his eyes. They were both existences that could be killed in one hit. Mu Zetian was a good talker, but her combat skills were terrible. When she saw hellfire flying toward her, she was scared silly. Just as she closed her eyes and waited for death, a light flashed, and Wang Yu appeared in front of Mu Zetian. He raised the Qi wave shield in his right hand and blocked the hellfire. At the same time, the health bar above Wang Yu's head suddenly dropped by 2/5. Hellfire originally had a 1-second stun effect, but because Wang Yu blocked it with the Qi wave shield, the stun effect did not appear. Illidan didn't expect his skill to be blocked. After being stunned for a moment, he rushed towards the crowd. With a wave of spring source magic staff, the 6 imps formed a crescent moon and blocked Illidan. Illidan raised his sword, and the 6 imps were immediately beaten to a pulp and were pushed back. Chun Xiang continuously cast poison and pestilence at Illidan's feet, and Illidan's forward speed slowed down. Chun Xiang took this opportunity to use distortion, and Illidan was frozen in place. As a boss, Illidan's control skills were not very effective. In less than a second, Illidan shattered the distortion barrier, and even the speed reduction effect on him disappeared. Bosses in manual mode were all very high-leveled. Illidan was a level 40 existence, so how could he tolerate being controlled by a level 20 warlock? With a roar, he swung the greatsword in his hand towards Spring Grace's head. Illidan's sword was 2 meters long. There was no room to dodge within 200 yards of the sword. The sword directly hit Chun Xiang's head. A soft sound could be heard. Chun Xiang was beaten into a cloud of black mist and slowly floated towards the rear of the team. Chun Xiang had always held the position of the main tank in the team. Now that he had been defeated, the front row was suddenly empty. Counterattack Tiger and Crimson Rose were both Retribution Paladins that focused on damage output. The Guardian Paladin Mu Zetian was no match for them. Just when the front was empty, Yinlao Air rushed over with a charge and blocked Illidan's greatsword with his shield. He took another step forward and hit Illidan's knee with his shield. Dash 192, Illidan's knees were not protected by armor, and he was forced back half a step by Yinlao Air's shield. Then, he swung his greatsword again. Yinlao Air took a step forward and circled to Illidan's side to dodge the attack. His left hand pulled out a one-handed sword and slashed at Illidan's calf. Dash 227, 2 damage values floated above Illidan's head. Counterattack Tiger was confused again. It wasn't because Yinlao Air could wield weapons with both hands, but because the damage was too strange. Before level 20, shield warriors could only use shields. However, after advancing to level 20, they would gain a talent called Dual Wield. Although this talent was also a dual wield skill, it was not a traditional dual wield skill. This was because after dual wield, the offhand still did not count as the main attribute. Instead, it counted as the weapon attribute. In other words, offhand attack equals weapon attribute asterisk skill damage. Therefore, most shield warriors used the shield as their main hand. Although the shield's defense was strong, its attack was not high. 192 HP should be the current limit of a shield warrior's main hand. However, Yinlao Air's offhand actually dealt more damage than his main hand. This made Counterattack Tiger a little confused. What's going on? I've never heard of shield warriors being dual-wielded. Counterattack Tiger asked White Emperor, who was beside him. Master Switch. The White Arch was an expert who was not weaker than the Quanjin sect. He could tell at a glance that something was wrong. Switching main hand? What does that mean? Counterattack Tiger asked. It means changing the main hand weapon at any time. When attacking, use a sword. When defending, Use a shield. This shield warrior is a very powerful expert. White Emperor explained. That works? Counterattack Tiger looked at Yin Lao Air in disbelief. Being able to switch main hand at any time during a battle was crazy. At that moment, Yin Lao Air switched positions and once again appeared in front of Illidan. He used a sword and a shield to fight with Illidan. Wuji, Crimson Azalea, and Little E continuously healed Yin Lao Air and pinned Illidan down. Seeing that Illidan was pinned down, the range classes also began to attack. Bao San, to place one's pride, and Mingjian Dao Su did not go forward. Instead, they stood in front of Yang Na, White Emperor, and Ming Du, the 3 damage output classes. In manual mode, the boss aggro could not be pulled. Illidan might hit that one, so they cannot be careless. Crimson Rose and Counterattack Tiger did not know the aggro settings of the boss in manual mode. Seeing that everyone else was attacking, the two of them raised their spears and charged forward. Ignorance was the biggest enemy. Illidan's specialty was that he had the highest aggro on the paladins. No matter who was pulling him, as long as the paladins entered his attack range, he would attack them immediately. As soon as the two of them attacked, there was an OT. Illidan ignored Yin Lao Air behind him and swung his sword, cutting the 2 paladins into pieces. At the same time, the staff in Illidan's other hand glowed and a green hellfire shot towards Crimson Rose. Bang! Yin Lao made a prompt decision. He raised a shield and smashed blood rose into the air. Only then did she manage to dodge the attack and luckily survive. Crimson Rose left the attack range of Illidan's sword. Illidan waved his staff at Counterattack Tiger. Duong! There was another loud sound. An arrow pierced into Illidan's head, causing him to take a step back and stunned him. Tiger, who had made a counterattack, activated charge and ran to the back, receiving healing with a lingering fear in his heart. After Illidan's stun was over, he roared and stabbed his greatsword into the ground. He grabbed the imp who was casting a skill not far away and stuffed it into his mouth. 5,000. A green number appeared on Illidan's head. F*CK. Everyone cursed at the same time, especially Yin Lao Air. He was in despair. Yin Lao Air jumped up and down, using his shield and sword. Illidan only had a little more than 1,000 HP. With the 3 damage dealers behind him, Illidan had only lost about 7,000 HP. However, Illidan had recovered more than half of his HP with just a wave of his hand. Could he be any more shameless? At this time, Illidan waved his hand again, and another imp was stuffed into his mouth. 5,000 full health. F*CK. Everyone was in tears. This son of AB*TCH had used reality to show everyone that he could be even more shameless. How we fight this? Crimson Rose asked Wuji in a panic. Wuji smiled and said, just do whatever you want. After eating the imp, Illidan's HP was not only full, but he also had 2 more layers of the Devourer buff. Devourer, level 2 attack increased by 2%, attack speed increased by 2%, attacks with knockback effect. Ha, it's delicious. To thank you, let's go to hell together. Illidan laughed and swung his greatsword. A sword aura shot out and hit Yin Lao Air's shield. Yin Lao Air was knocked back 4 or 5 meters. At the same time, a huge drop of blood appeared on Yin Lao Air's head. Fatal. Reduces HP by 1% every second for 20 seconds. Bao San, help me. Yin Lao Air shouted as he blocked Illidan's attack. Bao San, who was not far away, had already rushed over with collision. Under the cover of Mingdu's magic, Bao San rushed directly to Illidan's feet. Whirlwind Slash. Heavy Strike. Triple Slash. Fatal Strike. Weapon warriors were masters of melee combat, and Bao San was one of the best. Although his equipment was not the best in Xuanzhen, and he was relatively more low-key than the others in Xuanzhen, when it came to mechanical skills, other than Wang Yu, Bao San was at least in the top 3 in Xuanzhen. This was because Bao San and Wang Yu, to place one's pride, were the same. They were also in free mode. When Bao San was studying abroad, he had practiced Kendo. His foundation in Kung Fu was even stronger than to place one's pride. At this time, Bao San's skill casting, canceling, and rhythm were very good. Warrior skills all had starting gestures, but in Bao San's hands, they were very well connected. He hit Illidan 8 times in a row, dealing around 5,000 damage to Illidan. Illidan roared and swung his sword at Bao San and Yin Lao Air. Bao San turned around and went behind Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air put away his one-handed sword and one-handed shield and switched to a two-handed giant shield. Duong, Illidan's giant sword hit Yin Lao Air's giant shield and made a deafening sound. Yin Lao Air's HP plummeted. Wuji cast a few healing spells and pulled Yin Lao Air's HP back up. Illidan turned around and wanted to run to the side to attack others. Bao San once again came out from behind Yin Lao Air and blocked him with his sword. Yin Lao Air also cooperated and released Shield Bash. The giant shield blocked Illidan's path. The two warriors, one attacking and one defending, one advancing and one retreating, cooperated seamlessly. They forced Illidan to retreat again and again. It was as if they were pulling the aggro of Illidan, this free mode boss. Behind the two, Mingdu and the others were not idle either. Arrows and magic were all fired. They didn't care about aggro at all, because Illidan had no aggro at all. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to come over. Blood Rose was in a complete mess. She seemed to have a premonition that her action of freeloading the strategy this time would be a futile effort. Chapter 168. Freeloading Dungeon Guides was to follow the first clear team and learn from the way to fight the boss and the positioning of the players. This was a very common thing in online games. After all, everyone's attributes were about the same. No matter how good one's mechanics were, they would still be restricted by the system. Therefore, the dungeon strategy could be repeated. However, Bloody Rose had miscalculated this time. First of all, the aggro system of the elite boss in Rebirth was very special. It did not follow common sense at all. The normal way of drawing aggro was completely unreliable. In fact, Chuanjin's thinking was very jumpy and did not follow common sense. Farming the small monsters, killing them in one go, and fighting the boss as they pleased. This kind of barbaric method was even more inexperienced than newbies. If it was any other team, they would have been wiped out. However, not only did this group of people not wipe out, they even locked down the boss. This group of people was so damn strong that it made people want to break down. Although the rest of Chuanjin had not done much, Bloody Rose could already feel how scary Chuanjin's group was. In the past, Bloody Rose had always thought that the reason why Chuanjin could suppress Blood Alliance was because of the existence of a variable like Wang Yu. However, now she could see that even without Wang Yu, if Chuanjin wanted to destroy a big guild, it would definitely not be a joke. It was said that the #1 guild in the country, the Three Evils Manor, had close to 100,000 members. In the end, they were tormented by a team of 7. Bloody Rose had guessed that it was Chuanjin's doing. Bloody Rose did not believe it, but now it seemed that it was not groundless. At this time, Yin Lao Air and Bao San were blocking the boss. Other than the paladins, the rest of the players followed up to support the damage output. The 3 priests continuously healed. Yin Lao Air held his large shield firmly. Illidan was stuck in the corner, shouting angrily, but there was nothing he could do. The DPS classes in the team were all experts. There was no need to talk about Mingdu. With his super high magic damage, he could one-shot someone with a wave of his hand. Yang Na wielded the strongest weapon in the game, so her attack power was naturally not to be underestimated. Baidi's attack frequency was fast, and the effects of his skills were very shocking. His DPS was no weaker than the other two. As for Wang Yu and the rest of Chuanjin, there was no need to doubt them. Famous Blade, Snow, Wang Yu's high skill completion, and a place one's pride's combo were able to take out more than 10,000 of Illidan's health with every round of attack. Soon, Illidan's health dropped to 30%. Everyone back off. Seeing that Illidan's health had reached red blood, Wuji gave the order to retreat. Everyone, including Bao San and Yin Lao Air, retreated from Illidan's attack range. When the boss was enlarged, no one was allowed to approach. This was the first rule of clearing an instance dungeon, As soon as everyone escaped from Illidan's attack range, Illidan waved his scepter and chanted an incantation that no one understood. A dark aura spread out, enveloping an 800-yard radius. Within the area enveloped by the dark aura, grayish-white skeletons crawled out of the ground one after another. Undead descent of the White Bone Warrior. Skills of the Skeleton Warrior. Smash, behead. Compared to other monsters, the attributes of these grayish-white skeletons were not that great. However, that was only relative. A level 35 monster was still in existence that normal players could not deal with. Moreover, there were a lot of these skeleton warriors. They covered more than half of the courtyard, and there were at least 40 to 50 of them. The girls in Blood Rose were dumbfounded. Everyone back off. Brother Chun, second brother, guard the door, clear the monsters, dodge whatever fell from the sky, and kill whatever the boss summoned. This was common sense in instance dungeons. After Wuji gave the order, everyone did not hesitate and retreated from the courtyard again. Chun Xiang stood behind Yin Lao Air, who was holding a giant shield, and summoned imps to block the entrance. Then, he threw out a distortion barrier and froze the skeletons. The others took this opportunity to wave their weapons and clear the monsters that were frozen at the front. At this time, Mingdu did not hide anymore. He threw out Hellfire, and the super high magic damage continued to burn. Not long after, an empty space was cleared. Just when everyone was about to let out a long sigh of relief, there was movement in the area covered by the dark aura again. Another batch of skeletons was summoned, and this time, it did not seem like it was going to stop. The skeletons were endless, filling up more than half of the courtyard where the skeleton warriors were active. This boss is quite shameless. I'm afraid this won't work. Seeing this scene, Wuji frowned and said, the skeletons were endless, and the players had limited supplies. Even if they could last until the boss ran out of mana, they would not be able to continue. What do we do now? Wang Yu asked. Wang Yu is the one who found them. If they failed this instance dungeon, Wang Yu would be the one who would lose face the most. Interrupt the boss spellcasting. Wuji said. Interrupt? How is that possible? I can't reach it. Bai Di exclaimed when he heard Wuji's words. Among all the professions, archers had the longest attack range, so interrupting spellcasting was something that had to be done by archers. But now, everyone was blocked outside the courtyard by the skeletons, and Illidan was forced to the foot of the wall by Bao San and Yin Lao Air. The distance between the two sides was a full 20 meters. An archer's attack range was 10 meters, and the skill that could shoot 20 meters away was called Snipe. It was a skill that could be obtained after changing professions at level 20. Bai Di had not completed his profession change mission at level 20, so it was impossible for him to interrupt the boss spellcasting. Wuji's words were simply making things difficult for him. If he can't, what about you? Wang Yu turned around and asked Yang Na, Don't look at me. I'm not level 20 yet. Plus, you know how I fight, Yang Na said as she shrugged. Indeed, Yang Na was a free mode archer. Without the assistance of the system, she was used to fighting within the effective shooting range to ensure the accuracy of her skills. Forget it, I don't even know how to grasp the opportunity to show off. I'll have to go. Wang Yu stretched his arms and walked to the front of the team. You? How are you going to do it? Bai Di was stunned by Wang Yu's words. He knew that Wang Yu was very strong, and that he was far from being his match. But no matter how strong Wang Yu was, he was still a grandmaster of combat, the profession with the shortest attack range in the game. Interrupting spellcasting was not something that could be done just by fighting. Go over and interrupt his skill. Wang Yu said calmly. Go over? Are you kidding me? Bai Di was shocked again. A distance of 20 meters was filled with skeletal warriors. Even if a paladin and a warrior used charge, they could only advance about 3 meters. Wang Yu was a grandmaster of combat whose strength was not considered strong. Could he rely on burst punch to rush over? Or could it be that his teleportation could teleport him more than 20 meters away? Bai Di was a little stunned at the thought. F***CK, what did a grandmaster of combat who could teleport 20 meters feel like? The sharpshooter with the longest arms in all professions only had an attack range of 20 meters. If he could teleport 20 meters, It meant that he could appear beside his enemies at any time. No one would be able to kite him. If that was the case, wouldn't the game be over? Chapter 169. Baidi was thinking too much. Wang Yu's teleportation distance was not that far. All Wang Yu wanted to do was to jump over it. Back in the barren hills, Wang Yu had done this before. However, the skull of the skeleton warrior was slippery and could not be stepped on, so the difficulty was slightly higher. Wang Yu took 2 steps and jumped into the air. As he jumped, he used Collapsing Fist. Collapsing Fist had a range of 5 meters in the air. After the sprint, he teleported another 5 meters. Then he switched to a long staff from his glove and pushed it into the ground. Wang Yu flew up again. Finally, Wang Yu turned around and released a chi wave diagonally downwards. Using the impact, Wang Yu jumped near Illidan's head and used Tiger Fist on Illidan's head. Damn! Baidi and the others' jaws dropped to the ground. The people from Qianjin were used to Wang Yu's craziness and were prepared for it. It was the first time for the others to see such an amazing scene. 20 meters. That was a distance of 20 meters. This guy actually jumped over it. In the future, if anyone dares to say that grandmasters of combat are the easiest to kite, I'll be the first to stab them to death. Baidi thought in horror. With this kind of godly skill, even the most powerful archer would be nothing to him. Tiger Fist had a grab effect. The grab effect could even break super armor, so naturally, it could also interrupt Illidan's skills. After the punch landed on Illidan's face, Illidan put down his staff and giant sword. His hollow face stared at Wang Yu. Wang Yu could feel Illidan's infinite anger from the flames in his eye sockets. After all, this guy was a noble knight when he was alive. Being punched in the face was very embarrassing. The scepter and greatsword were put down, and the skeletons stopped crawling out. The pressure on the people at the door was greatly reduced, but the situation on Wang Yu's side was not optimistic at all. This was because many of the skeletons near Wang Yu were surrounding Illidan. Illidan was enraged. He raised his scepter and sent out a nether ghost fire. Wang Yu lowered his head and crawled under Illidan's crotch to his back. The nether ghost fire smashed into the skeleton warriors behind Wang Yu. These skeleton warriors were instantly smashed into flames. At the same time, Wang Yu kicked Illidan's exposed calf with a thunderstomp. 2456 damage floated above Illidan's head. Illidan's body turned, and the long sword in his hand swept 200 degrees. This sweep was not a big deal, but the skeleton warriors in front of Illidan suffered. At least 10 skeleton warriors had their heads chopped off. The undead lord had a large damage bonus to skeleton warriors. Wang Yu once again crawled under Illidan's crotch and smashed Illidan's knee with a collapsing fist. 2214, a boss like Illidan who relied on strength couldn't do anything to a cunning loach like Wang Yu. Illidan, who was continuously hit, was completely enraged. He stabbed his long sword into the ground, grabbed 2 of his minions, and threw them into his mouth. Plus 5,000 plus 5,000 in an instant. Illidan's health went up by 10,000. F***CKU. Everyone was depressed. They had forgotten that this bastard could be so shameless. At this time, there were still hundreds of skeletons in the yard. With Illidan's shameless skills, how could he die? Clear the small monsters first. Don't let the small monsters pass. Spring Soar waved his staff, and the distortion barrier blocked the small monsters that were desperately trying to get close to the boss. Mingdu's Infernal followed up. No one dared to be careless. They sped up the frequency of their skills, and the number of skeleton warriors quickly decreased. Illidan, this shameless bastard, did not have any self-esteem as a knight. He was addicted to regenerating health. His right hand grabbed forward and grabbed a few more minions. When you could not tolerate this bastard's wuji, he subconsciously took out his long staff and stabbed it upwards, hitting Illidan's elbow. Illidan's arm shook, and the skeleton warrior in his hand fell to the ground. At the same time, a damage of nearly 2,000 appeared above Illidan's head. Gah! Illidan glared at Wang Yu and attacked again. Wang Yu hit it again, and the skeleton warrior fell to the ground for the second time. Roar! Illidan roared and stepped forward. He wanted to pull out his long sword and fight to the death with Wang Yu. The end of Wang Yu's staff shook slightly and hit Illidan's elbow for the third time. Illidan's movement of pressing his elbow to pull out his sword was forcibly stopped. At the same time, Wang Yu's long staff used the force of Illidan's elbow to pull back, and the other end of the long staff hit Illidan's knee. Illidan's leg that was about to step forward was also hit to the ground. Control circle was the essence of staff techniques. With the body as the axis, the two ends of the staff were controlled, and the two gates of life and death were turned into a control circle. In Wang Yu's eyes, Illidan's chest, elbows, knees, and pelvis were all good points of force. Staff techniques were based on technique. Although Illidan was strong, Wang Yu cleverly turned these points of force into his own control circle. At this time, it was as if Illidan's whole body was equipped with a mechanism. No matter how he moved, he would be hit by his own strength through Wang Yu's long staff. In the hands of a martial arts master like Wang Yu, the attack range of various weapons could be freely controlled. Within the attack range that was almost close to the body, Wang Yu tried to reduce the attack range as much as possible and used the control circle to completely seal off Illidan. Illidan didn't know what to do with Wang Yu, so he immediately ordered his skeletal warriors to attack Wang Yu with all their might. Wang Yu smiled slightly, and with a turn of the long staff, he pushed the skeleton warrior to the side. Illidan took the opportunity to attack Wang Yu. Wang Yu's wrist curled back, and the long staff once again hit Illidan's arm. Illidan's strength was too great, and the skeleton warrior next to Wang Yu was hit by the long staff and flew out. If Illidan was a player, his heart would have collapsed. Only Illidan would understand how frustrating it felt to hit himself with just a wave of his hand. Controlling the circle required a high level of skill. Even if it was Wang Yu, when his attributes could not keep up with his own, he could only control the circle and not attack. So until everyone finished clearing out the small soldiers, Illidan's health did not drop much. Because Illidan was hitting himself, the system settings did not set him to lose health. Well, what's going on? After clearing out the small soldiers, everyone who saw the strange scene in front of them did not know how to express their feelings. Even the guys from Chuanjin couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this scene, "Damn, does this be Astra-starred Iron Ox still have a limit? Help, big brother!" Wang Yu shouted as he controlled Illidan. "You still need help?" Everyone asked back. In their hearts, Wang Yu was more of a boss than a boss. After all, they had never seen a guy who could play a boss in manual mode that was 20 levels higher than him like this. "Nonsense. I can't free my hands to attack him." Oh. Everyone heard this and quickly surrounded him. After working together, they finally smashed Illidan into a pile of broken bones. Chapter 170. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. When Xuanjin's people were happily farming in the dungeon, the entire Yu Huicheng was shocked once again. The Hell dungeon was different from other dungeons. In the system settings, Hell was the entity of all dungeons. Therefore, in other dungeons, the number of dungeons was unlimited and could be entered at any time. In Hell mode, each main city and dungeon could only accommodate one team. Therefore, when a team was farming the Hell dungeon, the record stone at the entrance of the dungeon would show the words "Dungeon in Progress." This was the prime time to farm dungeons. When the players of Yu Huicheng arrived at the entrance of the dungeon, they habitually looked at the dungeon record stone and saw that the Hell dungeon was in progress. F***CK. Is this for real? Who's tired of living? They're actually farming the Hell dungeon? Seeing the words on the dungeon wall, the players at the entrance of the dungeon were in an uproar. They even forgot what they were here for. It's true. When we were farming just now, there were 20 people who entered the dungeon. A player who had seen Wang Yu's group earlier said, F***CK. Which group of heroes are they? Everyone asked in surprise. I think I saw Chuanjin's people. Someone said, Chuanjin? So it's them, no wonder. When everyone heard that it was Chuanjin, they immediately quieted down. They didn't know about the other main cities, but in Yu Huicheng, Chuanjin was definitely a topic of discussion among the players. Things like Iron Ox soloing the Blood Alliance, Chuanjin evildoers run wild, and some were all stories that people often talked about. Literature building. These guys were originally a little crazy, and then they did so many unbelievable things. Therefore, everyone was used to it. Not to mention farming the Hell Dungeon. Even if Chuanjin's people went to the Holy Court to kill the Pope, they wouldn't find it strange. It can't be. Don't they only have 8 people? A player who knew Chuanjin doubted. I think I saw fish in the North Sea. Could it be fish in the North Sea? Fish in the North Sea? TSK. You guys don't know, right? He's already been crippled, and the people from the Pure Land of Bliss are chasing after him. How could he still have any subordinates? I'm not too sure about that. Other than the people from Chuanjin, there seems to be a group of girls. Miss? TSK, as expected of someone from Chuanjin. He has character, even bringing along a dungeon. The players' discussion was getting more and more out of hand. At this time, a few players said coldly, "Humph, a bunch of gangsters. What future can they have? Hell dungeons? It'll be embarrassing if they get wiped out." Haha, bro, you're not a native of Yuhuicheng, are you? A player who looked like a grandmaster of combat laughed. How did you know? Yuhuicheng is a local. He definitely wouldn't say such things. Their guild has the strongest Grandmaster of Combat in the entire game. At the mention of Grandmaster of Combat, a hint of pride flashed across the player's face. Humph, Grandmaster of Combat? Trash class. You. The Grandmaster of Combat player was about to lose his temper, but suddenly someone beside him pulled him and pointed at the badge on another player's chest. Let's go. Pure Land of Bliss? Seeing the badge on that player's chest, the Grandmaster of Combat player was stunned. He rolled his eyes and flashed to the side. Literature building. In the dungeon, after Illidan was killed by everyone, he turned into a pile of broken bones. His scepter and greatsword were stabbed into the ground. Everyone received a system notification. System notification. You've completed the quest Immortal Knight. Killed undead Lord Illidan 1/1. Dungeon completion rate 15%. Do you want to say progress? There were many instance dungeons in Rebirth. Some of them were known as party-level instance dungeons. They were large-scale instance dungeons that could take up to 20 hours to clear. Hence, any party-level instance dungeon with more than 20 players would have the ability to save their progress. After the progress was saved, the save progress would automatically disappear after the team was wiped out or the dungeon was cleared. After saving the dungeon, the next step was to loot the corpse. Who's going to loot it? Wang Yu asked. If no one's going to loot it, I'll loot it. Don't. Please don't. When the people of Chuanjin heard that Wang Yu was going to loot the boss, they were so scared that their hair stood on end. This guy had a pair of hands that harmed others to benefit himself. If he looted equipment from other classes, he might be able to sell it for money. If he looted a bunch of equipment specifically for martial artists, the others would cry to death. Wuji, go loot it, Chun Xiang suggested. Oh, so noble? Wuji was a little surprised. You're not trying to trick me, are you? This group of bad guys understood each other the best. It wasn't like they hadn't done things like tricking their own people before. Chun Xiang said, No, you're the boss after all. I'll give you some face in front of outsiders. Really? Really? Chun Xiang nodded. Then I won't hold back. Wuji smiled as he squatted down and pulled out a book from Illidan's body. White Bone of Sorrow, rare skill. Summon skeleton warriors to assist in battle. Note, summon type skill assimilation. Required class, Demon Warlock. Dark Warlock's name after changing class. Assimilable skill? Everyone was stunned when they saw the skill. Half of the people, like Wang Yu, didn't understand what the assimilation skill meant. The other half were amazed at how lucky Wuji's hands were. There are many types of skills in Rebirth. Other than the rare offhand skills and pseudo-offhand skills, there was also a rare skill known as special skill. There are no summoners in Rebirth. Summoning type skills were considered special skills. Special skills were very powerful. In order to limit a player from having more than one special skill, the system set a property for special skills, which was that they could not coexist. Due to the existence of this property, the players who obtained the special skill were very dissatisfied. After all, the special skill was something that they had painstakingly obtained. If they could not use it, how disgusting would that be? In order to compensate for the player's loss, the system added a more special property, assimilation. It was to fuse two special skills of the same type into one skill. In layman's terms, there were 2 apples in total, but the players could only eat one. However, the 2 apples could be fused into one big apple. In other words, after assimilation, although the strength of the players would be reduced, the power of the skill would be increased. During the closed beta, the drop rate and quest acceptance rate were both very high. Many assimilated skills had also appeared during the closed beta. The most famous example was a thief's poison skill and poison spray skill. The skill was called Toxic Sting, and it was extremely powerful. Ha ha! Wuji, it's mine. You're such a good brother. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Chunxiang was so happy when he saw the skill. Everyone was helpless. When they entered the dungeon, it was said that the equipment would be distributed according to contribution and class. If players of the same class had similar contributions, they would roll for it. Out of the 20 people, there were 2 dark warlocks. The other was called Scarlet Azalea. This girl had been slacking throughout the dungeon. If she dared to fight with Chunxiang for the skill book, not only would the others not be willing, even someone as good-tempered as Wang Yu would directly kick her out. This is fate. Everyone sighed. The Scarlet Church Instance Dungeon was filled with Darkness-type monsters. Since they were exploring the Instance Dungeon, the chances of getting a Darkness-type skill book were very high. However, no one expected that they would even get an assimilation skill. The rewards of a Hell Instance Dungeon were not just for show. Chapter 171. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. After the skill book was taken by Chunxiang, Wuji searched for a bit and pulled out a one-handed sword from Illidan's body. Fallen Knight's Sword, Warblade, Gold, Attack, 47-69 mana, 22-55 Vitality, 12 Strength, 12 Fallen. Normal attacks have a dark corrosive effect. Fatal, 50% chance of critical hit. Critical hit is 200% of a user's damage. Faith, active skill, block 30% damage. MP 60 cost required profession. Warrior, paladin required level. 20. Logically speaking, it was rare for a low-level instance dungeon to drop gold equipment. However, this was a Hell Instance dungeon, and it was a first clear, so Illidan was generous enough to give away a gold equipment. The good thing about instance dungeon bosses was that the equipment they dropped was based on the player's level. This Fallen Knight's sword not only had high attack, but it also had a blocking skill. It was a rare item that could be used both offensively and defensively. Third brother bow. Second brother, you two roll. Wuji turned his head and said, this time, other than Wang Yu and Chunxiang, these 2 warriors contributed the most. As for the 2 paladins, it was good enough that they didn't cause trouble. They didn't have the face to snatch the equipment. Third brother Bao smiled and gave up. He then said, I have a set. Then I won't hold back. Yin Lao Air smiled as he picked up the weapon and equipped it. The last item, Dark Seed, quest item. Wang Yu smiled as he took it. After Illidan passed, it was time for the second scene, Hell's Watchdog. The courtyard of the Scarlet Church was huge. There was a fountain in the middle. The area in front of the fountain to the entrance of the courtyard was the territory of the Skeleton Warriors. The area behind the fountain to the entrance of the church hall was the territory of the Dark Demon Hound. The skills of the level 35 Dark Demon Hound and the level 20 Dark Demon Hound didn't have much difference. The level 20 Dark Demon Hound only had 10,000 HP. The level 35 Dark Demon Hound had 150,000 HP. The difference between a Hell Instance dungeon and an Elite Instance dungeon was obvious. It was still Brother Chun blocking and everyone else attacking. After Brother Chun's Bone of Sorrow and Imp Summon were assimilated, the skill mutated into Demon Summon. The imp that was summoned was no longer as scantily clad as before, looking like a cannon fodder. Instead, it had a layer of bone armor attached to its body, making it look very mighty. According to Brother Chun's boast, compared to the previous imp, all of the attributes of the current imp had increased by at least 50%. After the run-in, just now, everyone's coordination had begun to take shape. It was no longer Chuanjin who was the main force, while the others were just bystanders. Everyone had found their own positions, and no one was idle. It wasn't for anything else but the fact that they didn't even have the chance to compete for the items that the boss had dropped. None of them wanted to experience that kind of frustration a second time. Literature, tower, finding one's own position was also a tradition of Chuanjin. The people of Chuanjin were originally very arrogant people. No one would be willing to listen to other people's commands. Therefore, whether it was clearing instance dungeons or leveling up, this group of people cooperated with each other consciously. Otherwise, they wouldn't even get a share of the soup. After a long time, everyone's coordination became more and more tacit. When they were together or fighting, they didn't need to communicate much. They could know what each other was thinking with just one look. Of course, this kind of playstyle was only suitable for small groups like theirs. After all, the more people there were, the harder it was to control the situation. This was also why Chuanjin was very picky when it came to choosing people. The Dark Demon Hound was quickly wiped out, just like in an elite instance dungeon. After the system screen passed, the Hellhound roared and came out. When the Hellhound's main body appeared in front of everyone, everyone was shocked. As expected of the Hellhound's main body, compared to the projection of the elite instance dungeon, this Hellhound's appearance was much more arrogant. This Hellhound was a bit smaller than Illidan, but it still had huge fangs, flaming eyes, and a snake-like tail. The most unique thing was that this thing had 3 heads. The middle one was black, the left one was red, and the right one was green. Hellhound Gasol, LV40, Gold Boss, HP, 500000 MP. 50,000 skills. Dark Corruption, Bloodlust, Hellscream, Toxic Breath. Not bad, a normal boss. Wang Yu looked at Gasol's attributes and said with a relaxed expression. Although this dog was gold, it didn't have the word elite in it, which meant that it was a normal monster. According to Wang Yu's experience in fighting bosses, this kind of boss was relatively easy to deal with. That's not easy either, Wuji said with a frown. The others also showed expressions of agreement. Why is it not easy? Wang Yu asked in confusion. When it came to the game, Wang Yu had always been very humble as a noob. Because this guy has 3 heads, his attacks won't have any blind spots. And 3 heads means 3 aggro. Even if it's a normal boss, it won't be easy to pull its aggro. Wuji said, normal bosses only had 1 aggro target. As long as the tank and healer cooperated well, the boss aggro could be pulled very steadily. Although Illidan was a manual mode monster, he had special aggro towards knights. Moreover, monsters in manual mode would target the weakest players, so this was a fixed aggro. However, with 3 aggro, the boss could easily change its target and cause an OT effect. No one would even know who its target was. This way, the pressure on the tank would be especially high. Gasol was also a huge beast-type monster, so crowd control skills wouldn't have much effect on him. If this guy wanted to OT, no one would be able to stop him. Wang Yu heard this and laughed. Isn't that easy? Can't 3 people pull it? Wuji said, nonsense. We won't worry about you. But where are you going to find 2 more people to work with you? Can't the second and Oldly do? Wang Yu asked. The second was a professional tank, and Mingdu had high attack. They were the best candidates to pull aggro. Mingdu quickly shook his head. This thing is immune to magic. I can't pull it. In Lao Air also said, this boss Dark Corruption slows down too much, and it has a passive skill called Bloodlust. If I go up, I'll only be able to heal it. Oh, so you're saying that only long-range physical attacks can do it? Yes. Wuji nodded. Wang Yu pointed at Yang Na and Bai Di. Aren't there 2 archers? 2 of them? Wuji hesitated. Can they do it? Wuji said them, but his eyes glanced at Yang Na. Chapter 172. Genius 1 Second Remember. Providing you with exciting novels to read. No, definitely not. Someone is trash. He can only be a hindrance. As soon as Wuji finished speaking, Mingdu jumped out, pointing at Bai Di and yelling. Mingdu and Bai Di had been holding a grudge for a long time. They had been suppressing each other throughout the dungeon. The only reason they did not cause any trouble was because Wang Yu was there to suppress them. Even so, Mingdu had thought of setting Bai Di up a few times, but Wang Yu stopped him in time with a look. Now that he heard that he wanted to let Bai Di pull aggro, Mingdu was immediately unhappy. Although this involved class restraints, if he let Bai Di do something he could not do, wouldn't he be inferior to him in the future? F***CKU, you not happy? Do you dare to compete and see whose DPS is higher? Bai Di, who was looked down upon by Mingdu, did not back down. You're so F***king shameless. Do you dare to compete in Ghost Valley? Mingdu pointed his middle finger at Bai Di. Everyone was speechless. When it came to shamelessness, the two of them were really on par with each other. The Cerberus had very high magic immunity, and the monsters in the Ghost Valley were immune to physical attacks. These two really knew how to play to their strengths and avoid their weaknesses. Can you two keep quiet for a while? Wang Yu turned his head and glared at the two. Air! The two immediately shut their mouths. Seeing this, everyone could not help but sigh. Wang Yu's prestige was really high. In the gaming world, there was only one person who could make these two enemies stop fighting with just one sentence. Of course, Bai Di was shocked by Wang Yu's strength. Mingdu was afraid that Wang Yu would kick him out of the team when the dungeon was about to end. Wang Yu definitely could not think of such a dark and shameless move. However, to think of others in such a dark way, it showed how twisted Mingdu's heart was. Of course, this lady is very powerful. Wang Yu turned around and said to Wuji. This. Wuji was put in a difficult position. No matter how lecherous this guy was, he wouldn't joke around with everyone's levels. We have to lure the Cerberus to the fountain. Really? The fountain was a part of the landscape, and it was circular in shape. It was a good obstacle in the dungeon. Wang Yu smiled and said, Don't worry. No problem. Right. Wang Yu asked Yang Na. Yang Na rolled her eyes at Wuji. She passed the crowd and rushed towards Cerberus. It can't be big sis. Are you going to deliver your head to us? When Wuji and the others saw that Yang Na, the archer, was not kiting in the distance, but rushing forward, they cried out in alarm. Nowadays, players were very restless. The situation in Rebirth was much better. Back when they were playing League of Legends, there were many players who would deliver their heads to them if they didn't like it. Could it be that they had encountered such a fragile heart this time? It's fine. She's just like that. Wang Yu said, We can't spoil her no matter what. I'll go pull her back. Wuji said as he was about to walk over. Wang Yu pulled Wuji back and said, What's the rush? Just watch. When Yang Na walked into Cerberus aggro range, Cerberus roared. The blackhead in the middle roared, Lowly worms, hell is not a place you can come to. Yang Na walked to a place 3 meters away from Cerberus, raised a crossbow in her hand, and fired an arrow. Pa! A silver arrow was shot into the black head of the Cerberus. 2788, a white damage number appeared above Cerberus's head. When the arrow landed, everyone was shocked. What high damage! Holy damage! Wuji was also shocked. The holy class had a restraining effect on the dark class. Therefore, when a holy class hit a dark class, the damage number would be white. An archer dealing holy damage was simply too strange. After Cerberus was attacked by Yang Na, its black head opened up and a cloud of black mist spread out. Yang Na dodged the black mist and took a step forward. She raised her hand and fired another crossbow, hitting Cerberus in the mouth. While fighting, she retreated and led Cerberus in the direction of the fountain. When the others saw this, they also moved closer to the fountain. This woman is so strong, Bao San said in shock as he stared at Yang Na, who was leading the boss over. Yes. In Lauer chimed in from the side. Yang Na was getting closer and closer to the crowd. When the experts saw Yang Na's skills, they were more and more shocked. Is this walking slash? Chun Xiang asked in disbelief. Yes, it's walking slash. Wuji nodded. Walking slash was an ADC control technique in MOBA games. Regardless of whether it was in Rebirth or a normal keyboard and mouse game, when an archer knocked an arrow, there would be a prelude to the action and a pause in the action. Players referred to it as the forward swing, back swing, and walking slash. It was the use of exquisite microcontrol to forcefully interrupt the back swing and continuously attack the target, striving for maximum damage. However, in traditional online games, it was difficult to use this walking slash technique because of the different modes. Therefore, when players played as archers, they usually kite from a distance. Unless they were top experts, it was difficult to perform walking slash. Rebirth was a full-scale simulation MMORPG, so the forward and backward swings of the attack were more obvious. Moreover, because it was an immersive operation, it was impossible to use movement to end the backward swings like in a keyboard and mouse MMORPG. As a result, the walking slash technique became an outdated topic in Rebirth. Who would have thought that such a technique that was impossible in theory would see the light of day again, and by a girl at that? This made the experts of Chuanjin suddenly feel ashamed. Uncle Nyo, luckily, I didn't provoke her. To place one's pride said with lingering fear. Bringing girls in games was also a skill. Meeting someone stronger than you was like slapping your own face. The other archer, by D, stood there with a pale face, as if he was frozen in place. He muttered, "This is impossible. This is impossible. Why is it impossible? The girl is 100 times better than you, and you're not fit to play as an archer? Just delete your account. Trash." Mingdu was constantly targeting by D. F*CKU, in full simulation, even in manual mode, an archer has to reload. How could she complete walking slash? Huh? That's right. The experts were reminded by D. In holographic mode, it was impossible to cancel the backswing. If it could be canceled, it must be a bug or a cheat. Look at her movement. At this time, Bai Ming Yu, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "Movement?" Everyone was slightly taken aback as they looked over. F*CK. This girl really didn't cheat? These guys were all 1 in a million experts, and they could see the crux of the matter at a glance. Indeed, Yang Na did not cancel the loading action. However, the instant she moved, she completed the loading action. This kind of operation was even more shocking than walking slash. Chapter 173. In a holographic simulation, everything was basically the same as reality. Regardless of whether it was in manual mode or system mode, reloading and dodging were done in 2 steps. It was not that these 2 movements could not be completed at the same time, but when reloading, one had to lower one's head or draw the bow. One could not do 2 things at once. Reloading and moving at the same time would delay dodging. When pulling the boss, the more precise the movement, the better. But this lady did not seem to be looking at the Cerberus's attacks. She only cared about reloading, but she was always able to easily dodge and counterattack when the Cerberus was about to attack her. What shocked everyone the most was that this lady could clearly pull away and kite, but she was always within 3 meters of the Cerberus. Was this lady so confident in her dodging? Awesome. Where did you find this lady? Chun Xiang asked curiously. This kind of expert was not everywhere. If Wang Yu said he knew her by chance, Chun Xiang would not believe it. My neighbor, Wang Yu said. Neighbor? Is she also a kung fu practitioner? The Chuanjin people asked. Yes. Wang Yu nodded. No wonder, no wonder. The experts felt a little better. After all, they were used to being experts. To be suppressed by someone, and a lady at that, they could not help but feel a little uncomfortable. But after hearing that Yang Na was a kung fu practitioner, they felt relieved. Kung fu was so awesome that no one could refute it. Kung fu. White Emperor was confused. Mingdu waved his hand and chased him away. Get lost. It's none of your business. You. White Emperor was furious. Wang Yu patted White Emperor's shoulder. Stop fooling around. The boss is coming. Get ready for battle. As he spoke, the Cerberus had been lured to the fountain. Wang Yu caught one head, and White Emperor shot the other head. The pressure on Yang Na was greatly reduced, and the frequency of her crossbow shooting increased. Wang Yu dodged the attacks of Cerberus by flipping or rolling. At the same time, he swung his staff to strike back. Cerberus howled as it was beaten, but it could not bite Wang Yu at all. Baidi's side was even more relaxed. Even if Cerberus had 100 heads, he only had 1 body. With the cooperation of Wang Yu and Yang Na, they held Cerberus back. Cerberus barked at Bai Di, but it could not jump over. The three of them pulled Cerberus's aggro. The three of them had particularly high attack, so the others were not afraid of OT and could freely deal damage. At this time, the fountain was a pillar terrain. Every time Cerberus used a skill to attack, everyone could dodge the skill by hiding to the side of the fountain. With the cooperation of all the experts, Cerberus quickly reached red blood. After reaching red blood, Cerberus roared, wanting to transform. Wang Yu leaped high into the air and smashed a ferocious tiger fist into Cerberus's throat, interrupting its ultimate move. The others increased their output. In the end, Cerberus let out a whimper and fell to the ground. System notification. You have killed evil watchdog Cerberus Gasol. Mission completion rate, 35%. Save? After clicking yes, Wang Yu received another message. System notification. Due to your talent, you have learned the skill roll. System notification. You have obtained the rare skill book roll. Looking at the skill book in his hand, Wang Yu cursed the system in his heart. What Wang Yu wanted the most was to learn attack skill, because Wang Yu's fighting techniques only had bonus damage when they became skills. As for the roll, Wang Yu could roll however he wanted. Was there a need to learn it? The system was really F***ed up, wasting a chance to learn skill. Although he was depressed, Wang Yu still carefully put the skill book roll into his bag. After everyone saved the dungeon, Chun Xiang suggested that to place one's pride, loot the corpse. To place one's pride's luck of rolling less than 2 did not disappoint. Other than the quest item, the Dark Seed, to place one's pride also looted a silver cloak and a pair of silver boots. Moreover, the attributes of these two pieces of equipment were very average. This caused everyone to feel resentment towards this unlucky child. Getting 2 pieces of silver equipment with average attributes for the first kill of a gold boss. Your luck must have been used up when you reincarnated. Mingjian Daoxue asked in disdain. Fuck, it's all Brother Chun's fault. I said I wouldn't loot it, but he insisted. Fine, give this broken thing to old you. Silver cloaks were thief equipment. There were 3 thief classes in the party, and they were Mingjian Daoxue, Little E, and Baiming Yoyu. Mingjian Daoxue had a full set of high-grade equipment, and was completely uninterested in this broken cloak. He casually tossed it to Baiming Yoyu. Baiming Yoyu was currently but naked and did not stand on ceremony. She took it and put it on. The boots were given to Yang Na, because Yang Na only had one exquisite weapon on her, and the rest were all trash. Bai Di was an expert after all, and his equipment would definitely not be any worse than this. Under everyone's condemnation, to place one's pride's head was almost buried in his pants. Suddenly, to place one's pride stood up and said in high spirits, Damn, my chance to counterattack is here. Where did you loot this time? Everyone asked curiously. For this kid to suddenly stand up straight, the last piece of equipment was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, this gold boss would be too unlucky. Look, to place one's pride, said in a foreign language, and a staff appeared in his hand. Warrior's Persistence, Staff, Legendary, Attack, 1700-1926 Magic, 1700-1926 plus 42 Strength, plus 57 Vitality, plus 46 Agility Will. Passive skill, physical defense and magic resistance increase by 10% for every 5% of HP lost. Guardian, active skill, block 80% of damage, MP 50, cooldown 15s precision. Passive skill, normal attacks will not miss. Staff Shout, passive skill, normal attacks will carry 5% of the target's maximum HP as magic damage. Lethal, passive skill, normal attacks have a 50% chance of causing a critical hit. Critical damage is 200% of a user's own damage. Class requirement, Grandmaster of Combat requirement. 1 quest item, unusable buffed. Everyone immediately burst into laughter. F***CK, quest item my ass. Seeing the last line, to place one's pride directly cursed. He had finally made a comeback, but he did not expect to fall into a ditch. To place one's pride's mood was on the verge of breaking down. Ha ha ha. I knew it would be like this. Wuji laughed gloatingly. Why don't you use your brain and think about it? This weapon's attributes are so overpowered. How could it be a level 1 equipment? Speaking of which, is this Iron Ox's quest item? Yup. Wang Yu nodded and took Warrior's Persistence from to place one's pride's hands. To place one's pride looked at the staff reluctantly, his heart filled with mixed feelings. Wang Yu consoled him. Don't be sad. Don't you have an epic weapon shard? When I have time, I will help you find it. Yup. To place one's pride nodded. Can you let me loot the next boss again? I don't believe that my luck is so bad. Hearing this, everyone was furious. This shameless person with such bad luck still wanted to loot the boss, so they all shouted, Iron Ox, kick him out. Forget it. The child is so pitiful. Wang Yu patted to place one's pride's head. Then the next boss. To place one's pride did not give up. Chapter 174. After killing the Cerberus guarding the door, everyone reorganized themselves and entered the cathedral hall. After entering the hall, everyone was on high alert. The first two bosses only appeared after the minions were cleared, while the third boss, the fallen priest, Dark David, was just like the minions, wandering around the hall. It was no different from the other dungeons. In this cathedral hall, there were still agility-type monsters, mainly disgusting vampire bats and strong defense gargoyles. Avoiding Dark David's aggro range, the two archers lured the minions over at once. The vampire bats didn't have a lot of HP, and their defense was also very low. They only had one lifesteal skill, which was quite annoying. However, this time, aside from Bright Doe, there were two powerful archers. The group of vampire bats was annihilated in just a few moments. However, the gargoyles were a little troublesome to deal with. The gargoyle's HP was very high, and it was a monster that was immune to magic. Moreover, its stone skin skill made it completely immune to physical attacks. It really took a lot of effort to deal with it, but fortunately, the party was well equipped this time. After a lot of effort, the gargoyle was eliminated, and Wang Yu found 5 demon wings on these guys. Dark David was the only boss left in the hall after the minions were eliminated. To be honest, the players did not think much of Dark David. This was because this boss was a humanoid monster and a fragile mage. Other than a resurrection skill, he did not have any special skills. Therefore, in the past Scarlet Church dungeons, Dark David was basically the weakest boss. Even the first boss at the entrance had a stronger presence than him. White Emperor attack. Under Wuji's command, White Emperor took 2 steps forward and aimed at Dark David. After shooting an arrow at Dark David's head, he ran back to the party. Dark David's aggro was successfully activated. He turned around expressionlessly. The fallen priest, Dark David, level 40, gold boss, elite, HP, 300000 MP, 300000 skills, summon, shadow disguise, dark origin, dark mist, rebirth, dungeon mission, god of light's redemption, kill the fallen priest, Dark David, and return him to the Father's embrace. Kill the fallen priest, Dark David 0 of 1. Quest complete. Rewarding 20% completion rate. Boss introduction. David was originally God's most devout believer, but the fear brought about by the darkness took over his heart, causing David to fall. Come back, child. You have been called by Father God. Seeing this character's introduction, everyone felt a chill run down their spine. Why did the divine light God act like he was running a pyramid scheme? Dark David was an elite boss. When everyone saw Dark David turn around, they quickly got into formation, protecting the weakest and most vulnerable classes in the middle of the formation. However, Dark David did not recklessly charge into their attack range. Instead, he waved his hand and summoned 10 imps, who stood in a row and threw fireballs at them. Dark David was a gold tier boss after all. The imps that he summoned seemed to be even stronger than Chun Xiang's enhanced demon. Priests also belonged to the mage class, so warlocks had the same attack range as mages. Summoning imps had a casting range of 800 yards, while imps had an attack range of 500 yards. Without even moving, Dark David's attacks reached everyone. After fighting Dark David so many times, they naturally knew this move from Dark David. Therefore, the formation changed, and everyone lined up in a row to face Dark David. The HP of the summoned imps was not much compared to the other monsters that had over 10,000 HP. Under the joint attack of 20 people, the imps were all killed in less than 3 rounds. After killing Imp, just as everyone was about to attack Dark David, they were shocked to discover that Dark David had disappeared. "Oh no!" Suddenly, someone exclaimed and shouted, "This boss can become invisible." Everyone, form groups of 3 and stand back to back. Don't get stabbed in the back. In Rebirth, most bosses that could become invisible would have a 50% damage bonus when attacking from the back. The attack of a level 40 boss was not something that players could withstand. If they were stabbed in the back, even a tank would be killed in minutes. Therefore, there was an even more despicable way to deal with this boss that liked to stab people in the back. That was to stand back to back. As long as the players were not killed, they would have room to fight back. After receiving the order, everyone quickly formed into 7 groups with their backs against each other. They stared at their surroundings without blinking to see if there was any movement. When everyone was in position, everyone immediately realized that something was wrong. There were a total of 20 people in the team. Why were they standing in groups of 7? Didn't that mean that there was one more? F***CK. Mingdu suddenly shouted and pointed at a person behind White King. F***CK, why are there 2 white dogs? F***CK. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Indeed, there were 2 brats behind counterattacking Tiger. They were both cute and wretched. Everyone vomited blood. Could it be Dark David in disguise? F***CK, this boss is too despicable. He actually knows this move. Wuji asked counterattacking Tiger. Just now, these 2 white kings, which one of them asked to form groups of 3 and stand back to back. I don't know. Counterattacking Tiger was sweating profusely. After all, one of the white kings behind him was Dark David. If he was stabbed, he would die. What the F***CK? Just kill them all. I'd rather kill the wrong person than let them go. Mingdu waved his staff, and a thunder spear condensed. Are you trying to take revenge? Everyone looked askance at him. Mingdu said sternly, "How is that possible? I'm so upright. I promise with my character that I'm doing this for the team's victory. F***CK off." Wuji gave him the middle finger and pointed his staff at the 2 white kings. "What's my name?" "Wuji," the 2 white kings replied in unison. "Huh, what about him?" Wuji pointed at Mingdu. The white king on the left said, "Mingdu, Dogly." The white king on the right said with disdain. Everyone, Wuji pointed with his staff and sent a message in the team. The one on the left is fake. As soon as the message was sent, counterattacking Tiger charged to the left and sent the fake white king flying. Everyone's attacks landed on the fake white king. The fake white king quick recovered in midair and flashed to the side. He chuckled and turned into Dark David. Dark David threw a black light toward his head with his left hand. The number plus 2,000 appeared above his head. At the same time, Dark David waved his right hand, and a cloud of black mist spread out and enveloped everyone. Chapter 175. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. After the black fog covered everyone, everyone felt their vision go black, and they couldn't see anything. F***CK. This fog can blind people. Everyone suddenly panicked. In a normal game, the blind effect could predict where the boss would attack based on their previous position. However, in a holographic game, they were completely blind. In the case of sudden blindness, unless a person had received professional training, he or she would be able to deal with it calmly. Ordinary people would only panic. Don't panic. The blind effect will be over soon. Everyone, retreat and lean against the wall. When Wang Yu practiced martial arts as a child, he had learned many ways to deal with heavy injuries. Blindness was just one of them, so Wang Yu didn't panic like the others. Instead, he retreated while feeling the flow of energy around him. Dark David was a boss. He was fast and strong, so when Dark David walked, the flow of energy was much stronger than the players. Wang Yu wanted to use this weak fluctuation to pinpoint Dark David's position. Because the players couldn't see, Their footsteps were messy and their energy was unstable. It was very difficult for Wang Yu to pinpoint them. At this time, a very calm aura slowly walked into the crowd. "You're the one." Wang Yu suddenly stretched out her hands and hugged the person beside her, grabbing him fiercely. "What do you want?" "It's me." A familiar voice rang in Wang Yu's ears. "Wife." Wang Yu's heart skipped a beat. He used a grappling throw and lightly pressed the person in his hands onto the ground. To be honest, Wang Yu didn't have much confidence in locking onto the enemy's energy. Moreover, Wang Yu was holding Mu Zixin. Without 100% confidence, Wang Yu definitely wouldn't kill her. At this time, the blind effect was over. When they saw Wang Yu pressing Mu Zixin to the ground, they all said with disdain, "Aya, you two are really in a good mood. Can't you just go home?" "What are you talking about?" At this time, another musician stood out from the crowd. F***CK. When everyone saw this, they hurriedly retreated far away. Musician's surroundings were empty. "Who am I?" Mingdu pointed at himself and asked Musician. "Mingdu." The two musician said at the same time. "What about Iron Ox?" Mingdu pointed at Wang Yu. My husband, the two musicians spoke in unison. F***CK. The boss has become smarter. Everyone was shocked and quickly covered their mouths. It seemed that every word they said could give this boss a chance to take advantage of it. In the team channel, Wuji shouted, "Iron Ox's wife, who are you?" Bai Di, who had been tricked before, said, "Don't waste your time. The system is so shameless. The message system of the person being tricked will be blocked." Everyone, the system god was indeed shameless enough to take care of everything. Mingdu rolled his eyes and stared at Wang Yu and said, "Nyogu, yesterday in Sinful City, didn't you say that the boss of the hotel had big breasts?" Hearing Mingdu's words, the musician who was lying down didn't move. The musician who was standing quickly walked over and pulled Wang Yu's ear. She said angrily, "You even teased an NPC. Are you even human?" I didn't." Wang Yu was about to explain when Mingdu struck the head of the musician who was lying down. At the same time, Mingdu shouted, "Hit the fake one." The musician who was lying on the ground smiled evilly. She flipped her body and stood up. She ran a few steps back and waved her hands. The black fog once again enveloped everyone. This time, everyone was prepared. The moment they were blinded, they leaned against the wall and stood at the foot of the wall. The blinding effect ended. This time, it was Wuji who was hit. "You can ask me questions." The two Wuji said calmly. They were as calm as usual. Everyone started to struggle. The previous two moves definitely wouldn't work. This boss was very smart. He wouldn't fall into the same trap twice. It was still Mingdu. He pointed at the two Wuji and said, "The two of you, step out. Turn right and walk together." "Do you want them to run in circles?" Everyone asked. "No, it's rare to bully Wuji. I'll take this chance." Mingdu smiled and said softly, F***CK. Everyone looked at Mingdu in disdain. This grandson was really bad. "Wuji, who's more handsome between you and divine like God?" Mingdu asked casually after letting Wuji walk around. "Nonsense, of course it's me," Wuji said matter-of-factly. "The other one's fake." Mingdu pointed with his staff. A lightning spear that had already been condensed shot at the other Wuji. That Wuji dodged to the side and dodged Mingdu's lightning spear. He ran in the opposite direction of everyone. Everyone asked Mingdu in surprise that one hasn't said anything yet. "How do you know that one's fake?" "He's hesitating." "Hesitating? Wuji is so shameless. Does he even need to think about this?" Mingdu said, "Brilliant. Truly brilliant." Everyone sighed from the bottom of their hearts. Wuji's face darkened. "We can't go on like this. This boss is obviously playing with us. We have to control it." Spring Xiang spread his hands and said, "I've tried it just now. He won't be controlled. Distortion and Shield Bash can't control him." "Then what do we do?" Everyone became worried when they heard that even their control skills couldn't work. Dark David was a wretched dark warlock-type boss. If there were no control professions that could control him, he could play everyone to death. Moreover, this guy had been tricked a few times, and his intelligence was obviously evolving. It would be useless to ask any questions if they dragged this out. Wuji looked at Wang Yu and said, "Did you press him to the ground just now?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded and said, "Kung Fu or skill?" "Knee strike." Wang Yu said. Wuji nodded and said, "Seems like grab skills are effective on him. It's best if we can catch him later. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. This guy has been avoiding me since the beginning. If I wasn't careless and thought that I couldn't catch him after being blinded, he wouldn't have run to my side." Wang Yu said, "To place one's pride?" Wuji turned his head and asked to place one's pride. To place one's pride, waved his hands and said, "Boss, you can't be thinking of letting a cute kid like me fight the boss alone, right? It's really difficult." Wuji looked at to place one's pride and sighed. "We're both grandmasters of combat, but why is there such a big gap between us? Delete your account as soon as possible." Apart from Chuanjin and the others who were used to Wuji's words, everyone else was silent. This son of AB*TCH's words were really vicious. It wasn't easy for Chuanjin to get to where they were today with a boss like this. To place one's pride, pointed his middle finger at Wuji and said, "F***CKU. Is he even human?" Cough, cough. Wang Yu coughed and calmly said to the place one's pride, "Little kid, watch your words." "Uncle Nyo, I didn't mean it that way." To place one's pride quickly said, "I know." Wang Yu waved his hand to show that he didn't mind, then asked Wuji, "Don't just tease kids. Do you have any ideas?" "Of course. Mingdu, come here." Wuji hooked his finger at Mingdu. Chapter 176. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. "No way. You're giving me a chance?" Mingdu exclaimed. "I'm a sorcerer. How can I have a grab skill? Don't use your power for personal revenge. I'm telling you." The others thought, "Serves you right for playing with him. Karma in this life." Literature building, Wuji glanced at Mingdu. He did not explain Mingdu's suspicion. Instead, he pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Stand next to Iron Ox. Do you still need me to teach you what to do?" Oh, I see," Mingdu said in relief. "It's a piece of cake, but I think it's better for me to stand next to White Dog." White Emperor glared. "Who wants to stand next to AB*TCH like you?" Wuji said helplessly, "When the dungeon is over, I don't care if you two hug each other. Hurry up, don't waste time. The boss is coming again." Hearing this, everyone looked over. Sure enough, Dark David was sneaking up on them again. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Dark David sneered coldly. With a wave of his left hand, 10 little ghosts appeared, and with a wave of his right hand, dark mist appeared. Chun Xiang summoned 6 demons to block Dark David's imps. The blinded people stuck to the wall, skillfully. After the blinding effect ended, the 2 white emperors stood side by side, helplessness written all over their faces. "Why is it you again, you piece of trash?" Mingdu shouted. "B*TCH, how would I know?" The 2 white emperors cursed at the same time. Mingdu knew that he could not win against the 2 of them. He retreated to Wang Yu's side and asked, "White Dog, let me ask you a question." "Ask." B*TCH. The 2 white emperors said. Their expressions were identical. "To be fair, who's better?" "I'm better," the 2 white emperors said at the same time. "It's all fake. Kill them." Mingdu shouted and threw a fireball over. Bai Di, who was on the left, hurriedly shouted, F***CKU, you're good." Mingdu chuckled and waved his staff. White Emperor, who was on the right, flashed with white light and switched places with Mingdu. At this moment, Iron Ox, who was standing beside Mingdu, suddenly stretched out his arms and caught White Emperor just in time. His knee slammed into White Emperor's stomach. White Emperor's face twisted and turned into the appearance of Dark David. "What AB*TCH? Emperor Bai and the rest looked at the smug Mingdu, dumbfounded. No wonder this guy wanted to stand with White Emperor. This B*TCH had such a despicable ability. F***CK. I can't stand next to him in the future. Who knows what he might do?" After Dark David was caught by Wang Yu, he used a knee strike and lost over 4,000 HP. Just as he was about to turn and run, Wang Yu came from behind and smashed Dark David's head with ferocious tiger fist. Ferocious Tiger Fist also had a grabbing effect. When Dark David was pulled back, he raised his hand and a cloud of green poison mist rose. Wang Yu ducked and dodged the poison mist. He bent down and smashed Dark David's stomach with a burst fist. Dark David bent down and followed up with a side kick. Dark David was directly knocked into the air. After being knocked into the air, Dark David did not stiffen like the other monsters. Instead, he floated up lightly. Catch him. If he escapes, it's over. Wuji shouted in panic. This Dark David was as useless as usual. Moreover, he did not display any effective attack skills from the start. However, his intelligence was clearly evolving. As his intelligence evolved, Dark David's imitation of players became more and more perfect. After a few more times, no one would be able to tell the real from the fake. At that time, everyone would be killed by him. Wang Yu heard this and wrapped his right hand around Dark David's left leg. With a pull, Dark David was dragged to the ground. He raised his hand and threw an energy ball at Wang Yu's face. Wang Yu dodged to the side, and the energy ball hit Yinlao air behind Wang Yu, taking out a third of his HP. F***CK. Don't let him resist. His attack power has clearly increased. Wuji was shocked when he saw Yinlao air's HP drop. Dark David's energy ball did not have high attack power, but had become so powerful. While this bastard intelligence was evolving, his other attributes were also increasing. Wang Yu did not dare to delay. He grabbed Dark David's leg and lifted him up, causing him to fall flat on his face. Then, Wang Yu let go of Dark David's leg and used his knee to press down on Dark David's waist. At the same time, he twisted Dark David's right hand behind his back with one hand and wrapped his other hand around Dark David's neck. Then, he locked Dark David on the ground. In martial arts, every sect had their own unique grappling techniques, and the most common grappling technique was nothing more than a lock. For example, Sambo's joint technique and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from country were techniques that focused on locking people. They were extremely powerful techniques for actual combat. The locking technique that Wang Yu used was the waist-locking neck from China's traditional martial arts. If Dark David was a normal system mode boss, they would resist even if their HP dropped. Of course, they would not be locked so easily. However, in manual mode, the boss thinking was closer to that of players. Especially after Dark David evolved, his intelligence was closer to that of players. As such, Wang Yu was able to take advantage of him. It seemed that having a high IQ was not necessarily a good thing. Attack him. When Wuji saw that Dark David was locked down by Wang Yu, he threw a light burn at Dark David. The others also took action, hurling all of their skills at Dark David. Dark David was a cloth armor boss with low HP. After being ravaged by these experts, he was resurrected. After reviving, Dark David subconsciously dodged Wang Yu's grasp. However, Wang Yu had more than 100 ways to lock down enemies. He had only seen one, yet he wanted to avoid Wang Yu's demonic claws. It was simply wishful thinking. Seeing that Dark David was about to run, Wang Yu went forward and hit his hamstring. Dark David landed on his knees, and before he could react, Wang Yu had already caught up. Wang Yu's hands went under Dark David's armpits and around his arms, pressing down on his neck. Then, Wang Yu used all his strength to push Dark David to the ground again. The tragic Dark David did not even have a chance to resist this time. He was sent to meet his father. System notification. You have completed Tiger. Emperor Bai and the others felt like they were in a dream when they received the notification that the quest was completed. I've never fought a boss like this before, really. I can't even imagine it. Fighting a boss on the ground. Even they would think that they were bragging if they told others about it. White Dog, you admitted defeat just now. Mingdo said to Emperor Bai with a smile. F***CKU. Don't you have any shame? White Emperor gritted his teeth. In that situation, if he did not admit defeat, he would have been sent out of the dungeon by Mingdu. How could he not be worried? Mingdu chuckled. I don't want to. I don't want to either. White Emperor said coldly. So that doesn't count. Chapter 177. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. Please go to literature building. Stop talking nonsense. Let's loot the boss. Literature building. Wuji asked everyone. Who's looting? Bright City, Brother Chun suggested. Does anyone have any objections? Everyone shook their heads, indicating that they had no objections. Looting a boss was a very honorable task. When fighting Dark David, Mingdu saw through the disguise several times. He contributed greatly to the team and naturally deserved this task. More importantly, everyone had seen Mingdu's shameless skill. Who dared to offend him? They might end up as the boss food. No, I don't trust this *TCH's character. White Emperor pointed at Mingdu and said with extreme distrust. Then who's looting? To place one's pride? Chun Xiang asked White Emperor. Really? To place one's pride was overjoyed. White Emperor was stunned and said helplessly, All right, let Dogly loot it. But I'll say this, if he dares to steal anything, I'll shoot him. TCH, do you think it's all you? Mingdu glanced at White Emperor and squatted down to loot Dark David. Dark Mist, rare skill, creates a poisonous fog in a 500-yard radius, causing a blind effect on the enemy. MP consumption, 200. Cooldown, 30 seconds. Class requirement, Dark Warlock. Although this skill was rare, it was quite useless. Control effects were divided into hard, strong, and weak control. Stun was a hard control, knockback and levitation were strong control, and blinding and deceleration were weak control. It wasn't that a weak control skill was weak, but Dark Warlocks already had Distortion Boundary, a hard control skill that wasn't inferior to Dark Mist. Moreover, the cooldown time of Dark Mist was almost 3 times that of Distortion Boundary, and the MP consumption was also an astonishing figure, so this skill could only be said to be okay but not practical. Let's roll. There were 2 Dark Warlocks in the team. Chun Xiang had just taken a skill book for free. If he took it for free again, Red Azalea would probably have a problem with it. After holding back for so long, the Scarlet Azalea's luck exploded. It threw its die and got a full 100. Chun Xiang immediately gave up. Rather than wasting time, it was better to be magnanimous. The second item was a special accessory, a tattoo. Shadow of Disguise, special accessory. Silver, physical defense. 17-26 magic resist. 8-16 camouflage. Active skill. Transforms into a target within 300 yards. Lasts for 30 minutes. Growth, passive skill. After being disguised, the target can be identified. If the identification fails, the target will die. If the identification succeeds, the target's attack power will increase by 5% and defense will decrease by 10%. Profession requirement. General required level. 1. The Shadow of Disguise was capable of instant killing, and its main attributes were also quite high. When everyone saw the Shadow of Disguise, they couldn't help but drool. Literature Tower. Special accessories were equipment other than main equipment. Even white-grade equipment was very valuable, let alone silver-grade equipment. Moreover, it had such a powerful skill. It was even more valuable than normal gold-grade equipment. This thing is interesting. Mingdu held the Shadow of Disguise and said with a smile, Who wants it? Me. Except for Wang Yu and Scarlet Azalea, who had already obtained the Dark Mist. Everyone raised their hands without exception. Only one special accessory could be equipped. Wang Yu already had a face scarf, and its attributes were not much worse than the Shadow of Disguise. Why? Are you of noble character and unquestionable integrity? Mingdu asked Wang Yu with a smile. Wang Yu said, I'm such a noble person. I won't use such cheap equipment. Oof. Wang Yu's face scarf was snatched from Yang Na. Yang Na naturally knew what was going on, so she snorted and said, Will you die if you don't pretend? Wang Yu was speechless. They still rolled. Everyone rolled together. In the end, North Sea Fishba was the first. He smiled and slapped the Mageweth on his wrist. Seed of Darkness. Quest item Wang Yu's. The last item was the Priest's Robe. Priest's Robe, cloth armor, gold, physical defense, 14-27 magic resist, 37-6512 intelligence, 15 spirit light protection. Passive skill, Increase the power of holy magic by 30% holy power. Passive skill. Increase the effect of healing magic by 30% God's grace. Active skill. Instantly restore 30% of the target's HP. Required profession. Priest. Mage required level 20. This robe required both priest and mage professions. In other words, regardless of whether it was a priest, warlock, or mage, they could all use it. There were 2 priests, warlocks, and mages in the team. Scarlet Rhododendron already had the skill book, so she naturally had no choice. Ming Ming knew that the equipment was useless to her, so she gave up. Even though this equipment could be equipped by both priest and mage, it was clearly a priest equipment. It was not suitable for Chun Xiang and Ming Do. At this point in time, the 2 of them would not fight with Wuji for it, so the 2 of them chose to give up. Just when Wuji thought that he was going to get this equipment, Scarlet Rose, who had been slacking, suddenly threw the die. 97. What do you mean? Wuji was slightly stunned and asked Scarlet Rose in surprise. The others also looked at Scarlet Rose in surprise. Roll for the equipment. Are we going to give all the good stuff to Chuanjin? Won't we be helping for nothing? Scarlet Rose said confidently. Hearing Scarlet Rose's words, everyone was silent. Even someone as eloquent as Wuji was stunned by the question. Of course, it was not because Scarlet Rose's words helped lead Jufu calm down Wuji. It was because Wuji had been the leader of this shameless guild for 3 years, and this was the first time he had seen someone more shameless than Chuanjin. Scarlet Rose had been standing at the back since they entered the dungeon. Her damage output and healing were not even as high as Ming Ming from Chuanjin's logistics team. As long as one was not stupid, everyone could see that she was slacking. At this time, she actually had the cheek to come out and snatch the equipment. Everyone was dumbfounded, playing with eagles all year round, and in the end, being pecked in the eye by an eagle. You guys are too impetuous. Do you think that everyone is as shameless as you? Wang Yu mocked in the guild channel. You say it as if you know that she is shameless. Ming Du retorted. Of course, I've always known. Wang Yu said. He remembered the first time he met Scarlet Rose and the others. They were being chased by a boss. After Wang Yu saved them, it was Scarlet Rose who shouted that Wang Yu had snatched their boss. At that time, Wang Yu was still an ignorant, middle-aged man who did not know the ways of the world. He casually gave her the item that the boss dropped. Such an embarrassing thing. Naturally, Wang Yu would not reveal it to these animals. Bai Di and Counterattack Tiger were like Rose and the others. They were all outsiders. They basically belonged to the same faction, so the 2 of them did not say who was right and who was wrong. They just stood at the side and watched. Mu Zixian did not contribute much to the team, so she had no right to speak. As for Yang Na, she was not in the mood to care about such a stupid question. Chapter 178. Lady, your behavior is wrong. We didn't say anything about your experience with the team. Why did you jump out when there's something good? Wuji said unhappily. Please go to Literature Building, Bloody Rose said in disdain. We didn't come here on our own, Rose. Don't be like this. Bloody Rose's expression changed when she heard what Bloody Rose said. She was invited by Wang Yu. It was okay to offend Wuji, but no matter how good a cleric was, she couldn't drag a team into a fight with Blood Alliance over a piece of equipment. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was different. She had the ability to deal with a large guild by herself. Rose, don't worry about it. I've always disliked Chuanjin's people. They said that they're going to fight with us. If there's anything good in the instance dungeon, they'll split it among themselves. Why? Are you guys willing to be bullied by them? Bloody Rose said with conviction. At the same time, she looked at Counterattack Tiger and the others. Cough, cough. Counterattack Tiger was embarrassed. In the first boss, Counterattack Tiger and Bloody Rose almost wiped out the team. They didn't contribute much. The second boss didn't drop anything good at all. Sister, don't drag me into this. Moreover, you're unreasonable. Counterattack Tiger cursed. He turned his head and pretended not to hear her. After all, Wang Yu was the one who found Bloody Rose. At this time, Wang Yu naturally couldn't just watch the show like everyone else. So, she said calmly, Look at your team contribution before you speak. What? You think the number one player can bully others? Bloody Rose started to cause trouble. That's not right. What did he bully you? Mu Zixian said unhappily. Seeing that Bloody Rose was targeting Wang Yu, Mu Zixian couldn't stand it anymore. Are the two of you ganging up to bully others? Everyone, this girl has a deck of cards on her waist. She'll follow whoever she wants. I'll just kill her. Yang Na frowned and aimed her crossbow at Bloody Rose. The people of Jianghu had such a bad temper. Don't. Wang Yu hurriedly stopped Yang Na. They hadn't even finished the dungeon, and they were already killing each other. That was just too violent. Everyone from the Quanzhen sect looked at Wuji, their eyes filled with disdain for Blood Rose. At this moment, as long as Wuji gave the order, he could kill this girl in minutes. Wuji smiled and said, "All right, let's roll. It's just a piece of equipment. I can afford to lose." As he spoke, Wuji also threw his die. 90. Everyone observe a moment of silence for Wuji. Damn it, kick her out. I haven't given up yet, Yin Lao Air said in the guild channel. As long as one person did not give up, the equipment would not belong to Bloody Rose. 97 was such a high value that most people would not be able to get it. However, as long as Bloody Rose was kicked out of the party, she would not have a chance. No need. Wuji smiled and said to Bloody Rose, "The equipment is yours." Bloody Rose reached out to pick up the equipment and threw it into her backpack. Damn it, we were tricked by her just like that. The Quanzhen channel was filled with curses. Quanzhen had dominated so many games, and they had always been the ones tricking others. They had never suffered such a loss before. She's just a little girl. It wouldn't be good if word got out. Hee. Wuji smiled and said to Bloody Rose, "Guild leader Rose, our Quanzhen has always had a good relationship with Blood Alliance. I don't want to cause any trouble because of this." No. I'm really sorry about this. Bloody Rose said in a terrified voice. Don't think that Wuji was just a cleric. He was the leader of this group of hooligans in Quanzhen. If he was really angered because of this, who knew what he would do? Wuji smiled and said, "There's nothing to be sorry about. I just think that our two guilds have such a good relationship. Isn't it a little strange that someone would suddenly do something like this? After hearing what Wuji said, the agitated Quanzhen people immediately calmed down. Wuji was really ruthless. He was starting to sow discord. Bloody Rose quickly said, "No, Rose is our good sister. She's just a little stubborn. We don't need Master Wuji to worry about our internal affairs." I see. I heard that the people from Gokura Kujodo are recently active in Yuhuicheng. I heard that they're very rich. What are you saying? Rose is not the kind of person who would do anything for benefits. Bloody Rhododendron pointed at Wuji and said. Wuji was not angry. He still said calmly, "You can know a person's face in real life, but not their heart. Moreover, on the internet, do you even need to think about whether she's that kind of person or not? Anyone with a brain can see that." Bloody Rose said angrily, "Don't slander me." Hee. All right, let's leave it at that. Let's continue the instance dungeon. But Guildmaster Rose, you must be careful. I remember there was a game called Founding Era. The Rosette Army was called Spear and Rose back then. After saying that, Wuji led the way to the next scene. Bloody Rose stood there in a daze. It was as if Wuji had poked something in her heart. "Big sister, don't tell me you believe what that despicable person said." Bloody Rose said anxiously when she saw Bloody Rose's expression. Bloody Rose smiled bitterly and said, "Why would I? Quanzhen's character is obvious to all. I know what I'm doing." That's right. Quanzhen is a group of shameless people. Everyone knows that. Bloody Rhododendron said, "All right, let's hurry over." Okay. Bloody Rose nodded and thought back to Wuji's words. Spear and Rose. The spear is broken, and the rose lives on. That's the reality. How can the internet believe everything? At that moment, the Quanzhen channel was in an uproar. Yin Lao Air said, "Did that woman really take the money? There be asterisk stars. Are you two?" Wuji said disdainfully, "I'll make sure she can't digest anything that scams me." Yin Lao Air choked and said, Since you said it so clearly, I thought it was true. The newcomer, Baiming Yu, sighed and said, Spear and Rose are also victims of the competition between guilds. Sigh, it's the law of the jungle. Money is everything. This will never change. As a loser, Baiming Yu had probably brought herself into it again. Mingdu laughed and said, Old Yu, look at your cowardly face. Cheer up. I've just swindled some good stuff. What the F***? Did Emperor Bai really hit the nail on the head? Everyone was shocked. No wonder people said that the one who understood you the most was your enemy. It seemed like that was the case. Emperor Bai actually saw through Mingdu more than the people in Quanzhen. TSK, White Dog is a roundworm in my eyes. Don't mention him to me. Disgusting. Look at this. It's definitely 100 times better than that stupid shirt. As he said that, Mingdu sent a screenshot to the guild channel. Chapter 179. I'm so great, Wuji said proudly after seeing the screenshot. Everyone looked at him in disdain. This is Mingdu's doing. What does it have to do with you? To be able to get to know a talent like Mingdu and even be his boss, isn't that great enough? Wuji looked at the crowd in disdain, then said to Mingdu, Give it to me. Mingdu's hand trembled, and he secretly stuffed a book into Wuji's hands. Revive, rare skill. Can revive a target that has been dead for 1 minute. Required class, Holy Priest. No wonder everyone was shocked by this. Revive was one of the Holy Priest's ultimate skills. With this skill, it was equivalent to having an extra life. They didn't expect this skill to be dropped in a low-level dungeon like Scarlet Church. After Wuji learned the Revive skill, he looked at the Revive icon on the skill tree and said proudly, Be more respectful when you talk to me in the future. Otherwise, I won't revive you. Holy damn it. Everyone stared at Mingdu. How could they let this shameless person get the skill so easily? He had to bleed a little. Damn, I underestimated his shamelessness. Mingdu said helplessly. Speaking of which, don't you turn into white light after death? How do you revive? Wang Yu asked a seemingly stupid question. After death, you have 1 minute to choose whether to revive immediately or wait. You don't even know that? Everyone looked at him. Wang Yu said, I've never died before. Bastard. Everyone cursed. He was the best player in the game, but he had never died before. Other than that, they didn't know how to describe Wang Yu. The boss in the back hall was the final boss, Enariel. Andariel's minions were all zombie puppets and the like. These strength-type monsters didn't have high movement speed. They were like moving targets in front of the experts. Among the experts, there was a control master like Chen Xiang. Before these minions could even get close, they were all killed. Enariel didn't change much. Enariel was no different from the old Enariel. The only difference was that this Enariel was also a gold-ranked elite boss. However, this elite boss was much stronger than trash like Dark David. First, the sky was filled with flames, and no one dared to show their heads. Then, the ground was filled with walls of fire, and everyone was forced to retreat. In short, there was only one word to describe it: ruthless. However, no matter how powerful Enariel was, she would eventually be overpowered by the players. If it were any other team, without high fire resistance equipment, they wouldn't even be able to get close to Enariel. But now that the Chuanjin team had Wang Yu as a variable, everything became a lot easier. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Wang Yu leaped over the firewall, dodged the flames, and arrived in front of Enariel. A single strangle was all it took for the arrogant Enariel to stop all of her skills. The level 40 gold-ranked Enariel was much stronger than the Enariel of the past. The Enariel of the past would be dumbfounded after being strangled. Now that the gold-ranked Enariel was strangled by Wang Yu, she actually began to fight hand-to-hand with Wang Yu. Think about it. Who was Wang Yu afraid of in hand-to-hand combat? Even the hermit, who was an expert in melee combat, was beaten up like a dog. Wang Yu's silhouette dashed around, either landing heavy punches or circling behind Enariel to lock her down. Every punch landed on her flesh, making the audience's blood boil. In Dariel's clothes, everyone knew. What was even more amazing was that Wang Yu's right hand never left Andariel's neck. It wasn't until Enariel transformed into a spider that Wang Yu jumped away. How is it? How does it feel, Brother Iron Ox? Chun Xiang was the first to greet Wang Yu with a smile when he saw him jump back. I'm not. Wang Yu was about to answer when he felt a murderous aura behind him. He quickly changed his words. Brother Chun, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand anything? TSK, TSK. You wasted all your skills. Chun Xiang shook his head, feeling pity for Wang Yu. Stop talking nonsense, the boss is coming. Wu Ji roared. He turned around and hid behind a pillar. The people of the Quan Jun sect quickly followed suit and looked for cover. Although the others had never fought against an Ariel who could use toxic nova, they knew that these guys wouldn't do anything useless when they saw how nimbly Chuanjin and the others hid. So they followed suit. Swoosh! A soft sound was heard, and a circle of green light covered the entire back hall. This was the first time everyone saw the attack range of toxic nova, and their faces turned green. F***CK. Luckily we hid with the Chuanjin players. Otherwise, we would have been killed. The elite Anariel was quite smart. She was casting her skills in a place where the players couldn't attack, and no one dared to take a step forward. This isn't easy. She has a brain. She's not coming. To place one's pride said gloomily. The back hall was large, but there were only 4 pillars at the entrance. In the past, when Chuanjin players killed Anariel, they lured her to the center of the 4 pillars and used the terrain to kill her. Now, that Anariel wasn't moving at all. They were at a loss for what to do. Iron Ox, can you do what you did last time and pick her up? Wu Ji asked Wang Yu. Are you dreaming? I used all my strength last time, and this is a gold boss. But I have a way to make her move, but I can't guarantee how far she can move, Wang Yu said. Move? Wu Ji put on his glasses and measured the distance. Can you make her move 3 meters? Andariel's position was at least 11 meters away from the archer. If Wang Yu could move her into the magician's attack range, which was 8 meters, everything would be easy. Wang Yu glanced at it and thought for a moment. It should be possible. Okay, don't let us down, Wu Ji said. Wang Yu smiled, stood up, and walked to the front of the pillar. Counterattack Tiger was shocked. Nyoga, do you want to die? After following Wang Yu through the dungeon, Counterattack Tiger had witnessed Wang Yu's skills. He knew that Wang Yu wasn't an ordinary player. Against the boss, if Wang Yu's strength was no match for the boss, she could use her mystical techniques to nullify the attacks. If she couldn't nullify the attacks with her techniques, Wang Yu could rely on her agility to evade the attacks. Regardless of whether it was for the boss or for the players, this kind of super technique was an extremely difficult opponent. But no matter how strong Wang Yu was, it was all based on the system settings. As long as he had the skills, it was reasonable for him to do so. But Grandmasters of Combat were short-range class. Against a boss like Anariel, who had no openings and no obstacles, how could he dodge it? Wouldn't that be challenging the system's settings? Famous Sword Daoshua smiled and said, Don't worry. Old Ox is also a stick player. He has experience in dealing with spider spirits. Chapter 180. In traditional games, dodging was usually done from the front, back, left, and right. Up and down would naturally be ignored by the players. Therefore, in Counterattack Tiger's mind, Andariel's toxic Nova couldn't be dodged without any cover. Wang Yu jumped in front of the pillar and dashed forward with collapsing fist. Anariel didn't hesitate to use toxic Nova when she saw her target. Swoosh! A soft sound could be heard as the poison ring spread out. Wang Yu canceled the skill just as the poison ring was about to touch him. He pulled out his staff and leaped to Andariel's side. Fuck, you can do that. Counterattack Tiger was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen such a dodging method. Wang Yu landed in front of Anariel. Anariel waved her claws and was about to attack Wang Yu, but Wang Yu grabbed Andariel's arm and pulled her back. Anariel was pulled into Wang Yu's chest. Then, Wang Yu canceled the skill and jumped back with Tiger Fist. Anariel was pulled another half a meter into the air. Before Anariel could hit the ground, Wang Yu flashed behind Anariel and used Thunderstomp. Wang Yu used 3 skills in a row, 2 grab and 1 repel. Anariel was forcibly moved 3 meters away, right into the attack range of the team's mages. Fuck. Is she possessed by the blind monk? wasn't just counterattack Tiger this time. Even by D was shouting. League of Legends was a very popular game for many years. There was a hero called the Blind Monk. His ultimate move was 100% similar to Wang Yu's last kick. Mingdu catch. Wu Ji shouted and quickly hid on the other side of the pillar. Mingdu received the order and waved his staff. In a flash, Ariel was teleported to the center of the 4 pillars. The people from the Quanjin sect already knew of Wu Ji's arrangements, so they were already in position. Mu Zetian had always been wise to protect herself and not be a burden. From the very beginning, she had used her GM's professional vision to find a place to hide. Ariel landed on the ground and activated Toxic Nova. Paladins and archers had movement skills. Yang Na, Bai Di, and the others quickly hid behind cover. Only Scarlet Rose and Scarlet Cuckoo had short legs and couldn't move. The 2 poor girls were hit by Toxic Nova. Both of their HP bars were emptied in an instant. Schwa. A white light flashed. Before the Crimson Azalea's HP bar was emptied, Wu Ji cast a recovery spell on the Crimson Azalea's body, keeping the Crimson Azalea's HP up. Then, he cast a few more heals to restore the Crimson Azalea's HP back to full. Damn. Ever since they entered the dungeon, Wu Ji didn't perform much. He just followed behind the tanks and healed them. However, this move showed everyone how strong Wu Ji was. Ariel was a level 40 boss. Her skills could one-shot a player, yet this cleric had managed to grab the opportunity to keep her HP at bay the moment her health bar was empty. Her accuracy was simply unheard of. The Scarlet Rhododendron was saved, but the Scarlet Rose was not so lucky. In shock, the Scarlet Rhododendron turned into a white light. I can't help it. I don't know group healing, Wu Ji said apologetically to Scarlet Rose and Scarlet Rose. He looked very humble. No, it's okay. Thank you. Scarlet Cuckoo calmed down and thanked Wu Ji. Actually, it was reasonable for Wu Ji not to save the 2 of them. Moreover, in that kind of situation, saving them was simply a fantasy. However, who would have thought that not only did Wu Ji not save them, he even saved one of them. Not only the Scarlet Rose and Scarlet Rose, but the others were also very surprised. Did we misunderstand him? Maybe he's actually a very generous man? Scarlet Rose and Scarlet Cuckoo looked at Wu Ji dumbfoundedly. They felt that Wu Ji was a gentleman. In the guild channel, Bao San said angrily, "Trash, you turn into an idiot when you see a woman." The others were also confused. Why should we save that woman? Let her die, Wu Ji said disdainfully. What do you know? I have my own plans. What do we do now? Attack? Counterattack, Tiger, asked Wu Ji. Ariel was already in everyone's attack range. If it didn't attack now, she might run away again. There's no rush. I'll revive my partner first. Wu Ji smiled and selected Scarlet Rose in the team list. With a wave of his staff, a milky white light landed where Scarlet Rose disappeared. After her death, Scarlet Rose's screen was black and white. She was about to click Release Soul when she suddenly received an option. Someone wants to revive you. Do you accept? Yes. Scarlet Rose did not hesitate to choose resurrection. As soon as she appeared, she saw Ariel beside her. Ariel waved her arm and killed Scarlet Rose again. F***CK. Wu Ji shouted. Why didn't she dodge? She wasted my resurrection for nothing. Wu Ji's acting was really good. If he hadn't sent a message in the Chuanjin channel the moment Scarlet Rose died, that's weird. She didn't drop anything even after dying twice. Even the people in Chuanjin would have thought that he really let bygones be bygones. Sorry. Scarlet Rose and Black Tiger had completely regarded Wu Ji as a magnanimous person. The 2 who counterattacked couldn't help but think, repaying evil with good. Wu Ji is really a man. F***CK. She didn't drop any equipment even after dying twice. This girl's luck is really good, Wu Ji said gloomily. Mingdu said the drop rate of items in the bag is much lower than on the body. Just kill her a few more times. Mingdu had rich experience in killing. Nonsense. Resurrection can only be used once an hour. If I kill her too many times, I'll be suspected, Wu Ji muttered. Then don't bother. When we get out of the dungeon, I'll ambush her 8 or 10 times. I don't believe she won't drop anything. North Cuu was a very practical professional player. He was very displeased with Scarlet Rose's behavior. Now that he had just joined Xuanjin, it was a good opportunity to show off. Wuji smiled and said, "There's no need for that, old fish. If it's just killing her, it'll be too easy on her. By the way, Dao Xue, do you know any rich clerics above level 20? It's best if they're from Gokura Kajodo. Even if they're not from Gokura Kajodo, they're from other big guilds." Wuji asked Dao Xue's sword. Dao Xue's sword had been Master Dao for many years, so he had a lot of connections. Oh, there's one. His name is Southern Hell Foodie. He's a core member of Gokura Kajodo. We met him in the Desolate City last time. Dao Xue's sword said. How's their relationship? Wuji asked. Just like that. He's an old client of mine. He often asks me if I have any good equipment or clues. Tell him that Scarlet Rose has an exquisite cleric robe for sale. Tell him to come to Yu Huicheng. Wuji said, How do you know Scarlet Rose will sell it? The others asked curiously. Wuji said, Nonsense. She offended Xuanjin. How would she dare to bring something she can't use with her? As long as she has a brain, she'll make a move. Can you tell me what you want to do? Everyone felt a sense of unease. Involving Blood Alliance and Gokura Kajodo together, it didn't seem like something good was going to happen. You'll know when the time comes. Wuji smiled. Scarlet Rose, who had died twice in a row, felt very wronged. Although she wasn't very smart, a selfish person like her usually had a dark heart. Therefore, Scarlet Rose felt that this was Wuji's doing. However, when she thought about how Wuji had saved the two of them, Scarlet Rose felt a little uncertain. Is it Xuanjin's doing? The more Scarlet Rose thought about it, the more afraid she became. After reviving, Scarlet Rose dropped a level, which made her even more terrified. No, if Xuanjin's people really hate me, I'll definitely be ambushed by them. If that's the case, I might as well sell this equipment. Thinking about this, Scarlet Rose made up her mind and went to the consignment hall. The auction hall could only trade with gold coins. Gold equipment was so high-end, it was still easier to sell with RMB. Scarlet Rose hadn't walked far when she suddenly received a friend message. Southern Jambu wants to add you as a friend. Southern Jambu? Scarlet Rose was slightly stunned. Why does he want to add me? Southern Jambu was quite a famous expert, and he was also a priest expert. Scarlet Rose, who was also a priest, naturally knew him. Scarlet Rose? Southern Jambu sent a message after going through the friend request. Yes. Why are you looking for me? Scarlet Rose asked curiously. Southern Jambu said, I heard that you have a gold priest robe. How did you know? Scarlet Rose was shocked. She had just gotten this robe? How would other people know? This is a trade secret, don't ask. I just want to ask you, are you selling it or not? Southern Jambu said, Yes. Scarlet Rose regretted the moment she said it. She knew that this Southern Jambu didn't lack money. Since he said it so straightforwardly, it would be hard to raise the price. When Southern Jambu heard that Scarlet Rose's robe was for sale, he casually gave a price, 500 gold. Fixed price. Bloody Rose was shocked. Even though gold-grade equipment was expensive, it wasn't a weapon. 500 gold was 500,000 gold. Bloody Rose's initial target price was only 300 gold, yet South Jam Footy had nearly doubled the price in an instant. This? Scarlet Rose hesitated. She really wanted to raise the price, but she was afraid that she would offend Southern Jambu. Southern Jambu was rich, but he wasn't stupid. Seeing Scarlet Rose's hesitation, he said, Girl, the price I'm offering is definitely higher than your target price. I like straightforward people. If you don't like it, I'll find someone else. Scarlet Rose hurriedly said, No, 500 it is. Where are you? I'll mail it to you. Southern Jambu said, There's no need to mail it. I'm a businessman, and I'm used to dealing face-to-face, especially with beautiful women. I'm on the airship to Yu Huicheng now. Find a place to wait for me. All right, Han's Tavern it is. Scarlet Rose replied. Han's Tavern. Ming Ji and Dao Xue replied to Wuji at the same time. Got it. Chapter 181. The Chuanjin players were experienced in killing Anariel. Chun-Gu released a demon to block Andariel's path while the ranged classes attacked from behind the pillar. Andariel's health was already low after her transformation. Under the attacks of the experts, she shrieked and reverted to her original form. "I'll loot this boss." Chun Xiang volunteered before Andariel's corpse had even turned cold. "Why?" To place one's pride, Mingdu and the other two from Wuji said unhappily. Andariel's corpse was a system benefit. Usually, these perverts would fight over who would loot the corpse. Chun Xiang smiled, because the three of you looted the previous few bosses. This time it's my turn. F***CK. Little Chun, you're even scheming against us. The people from the Chuanjin sect were very smart. When they heard Chun Xiang's words, they immediately realized why Chun Xiang had urged the others to loot the corpses during the first three bosses. It turned out that he had been waiting here. The others broke out in cold sweat. How could this perverted uncle be so calculative? Rocket Sky Assault. Rare skill. Can launch multiple rockets to attack the enemy. Each rocket costs 50 MP class requirement. Mage. Everyone had seen this skill before. It was a shameless skill that rained down like rain. It was pretty strong, but the mana cost was ridiculous. Each rocket cost 50 MP. At this stage of the game, mages with pure intelligence only had around 2000 MP. It was impossible for them to cover the sky with a wave of their hands like Anariel. There were only 2 mages in the team. They were both from Chuanjin. The girls had already dedicated themselves to being professional players. Naturally, they wouldn't fight with Mingdu over the skill. Thus, Mingdu naturally got it. Poison Nova. Rare skill. Uses poison to attack surrounding enemies. MP cost 150. Class requirement Demon Warlock. F***CK. This skill finally dropped. Chun Xiang was in tears. Warlocks were a class that focused on crowd control. Their damage output was based on continuous damage. The worst part was that warlocks didn't rely on intelligence or spirit, but poison. Right now, the poisons on the market were all made by the players themselves. The damage was pathetic. Even if Brother Chun had 2 advanced poison skill books, the damage of a warlock's skills was too low. The single target damage was enough to make people want to cry, but have no tears. Now that he had the AoE skill, Toxic Nova, Chun Xiang could be considered to have a main way to deal damage. "You won't snatch it from me, right?" Chun Xiang asked as he glanced at the Scarlet Cuckoo. Blood, Rhododendron hurriedly shook her head. "How could that be? Brother Chun, you've already given me a book." "Good boy." Chun Xiang snapped his fingers and took Toxic Rising Star into his arms. Knight's Love, Necklace, Gold, Attack, 22-47 mana, 31-50 toughness. Increases strength and vitality by 5%. Courage. Night skill effect increased by 10% sacrifice. Active skill. Consumes 50% HP to increase party members' attack by 50%. Item description. Andariel's lover was a glorious knight who sacrificed himself on the front lines for justice. Anariel fell because of this. Class requirement. Knight level requirement. 15. This necklace was standard knight equipment. It was a rare item for both Guardian Knights and Punishment Knights. Mu Zixian, Counterattack Tiger, and Blood Rhododendron rolled for it. In the end, Counterattack Tiger obtained this precious accessory. Devil's Fang, Quiver special item. The quiver contains 10 Devil's Fangs with 20 dark damage. It automatically regenerates 1 dark damage every 5 seconds. An archer's arrows were a consumable item, and they had a high consumption rate. Therefore, a quiver was an extremely rare item. Not to mention, a quiver that could automatically recover arrows and deal darkness damage was worth almost as much as a piece of gold equipment on the market. Everyone thought that Yang Na would compete with Bai Di, but Yang Na casually chose to forfeit. "I can't use the silver grade boots just now. You don't have to do this." Bai Di was very principled in front of the girl. Yang Na said calmly, "I can't use this quiver either." "No way." Everyone was a little suspicious. Did this quiver have any restrictions? Yang Na smiled and showed off her weapon. Holy Demon Crossbow, Epic, Attack 100-1, 50 mana 80-100 plus 27 agility plus 22 strength Holy Dragon's Might. Restrains beast-type monsters. Demonic Dragon Strike. 30% chance of crippling, 30% speed reduction. Fire Dragon's Flame. Normal attack with burning damage. Holy Transformation. Deals special damage to dark monsters. Unable to use dark attribute items. Class requirement. Demon Hunter level requirement. 15 equipment can be upgraded. Epic equipment. Everyone was shocked when they saw the crossbow in Yang Na's hands. It hadn't even been a month since the game started, and she already had an epic equipment? Wang Yu was stunned. Isn't this the Fire Dragon's Fang I gave you? Why? My mentor gave it to me after it evolved. Yang Na said, but it's all thanks to your crossbow. The Holy Demon Stone can only upgrade it by 1 grade. If it was my previous silver grade crossbow, it would at most be a gold equipment. That's nice, Wang Yu said enviously. Didn't your mentor give you any equipment? It's good enough that he didn't ask for equipment from me, Wang Yu said through gritted teeth. Other mentors gave masks and godly equipment, but my mentor only knew how to be a vampire. Why was there such a huge difference between classes? Seeing the weapon in Yang Na's hands, Bai Di's last bit of superiority disappeared, and he reached out to take the quiver. The last 2 items were Wang Yu's quest items, the Fallen Nun's Heart and the Dark Seed. In previous dungeons, Anariel was the final boss. But in this hell dungeon, after killing Anariel, the dungeon progress was only 80%, and the completion rate was only 75%. This meant that there was another boss behind Anariel. But the path to the Scarlet Church ended here, and there were no more entrances. There's a hidden boss in this dungeon? Mingdu asked, confused. Hidden bosses aren't part of the main quest, so this Anariel isn't the final boss. The one who spoke was none other than Mu Zixin. Oh, is that so? Then, Sister Niu, what do you think the final boss is? Hearing Mu Zixin talk about gaming knowledge with a straight face, Mingdu was slightly taken aback, and he asked casually. The Chuanjin people were all gaming experts, and they had a better understanding of the game than normal players. As for Mu Zixin, other than Wang Yu and his friends in real life, in the eyes of the rest of the team, Mu Zixin was just a bystander. This lady's only special identity was that she was Wang Yu's wife, so they had to give her face, but even though Wang Yu was the #1 expert, his gaming knowledge was very low. Even in the beginner's village, there weren't many people who were whiter than him. If Wang Yu was like this, how good could his wife be? So, seeing Mu Zixin talk about gaming knowledge, everyone felt a little uncomfortable originally. Mingdu was just joking, but Mu Zixin actually explained it with fervor and assurance. Mu Zixin said, "This is the game's back hall. From a map, the church area has already been developed, and from the shadows on the map, this back hall's walls don't have anything like a secret door. So I think the hidden boss should be underground." Underground? You must be joking. Everyone laughed. The ground of this map was a flat rock, and there weren't even any gaps. How could there be an entrance to the basement? That cabinet. Mu Zixin pointed at a bookcase in the corner and said, "The entrance is under the cabinet." Everyone was speechless. Mingdu said, "I realize that Sister Niu's analysis of the problem seems to be very self-confident. Hee hee." Mu Zixin laughed and said, "Hubby, go and move that cabinet to take a look." Wang Yu nodded and walked over. Everyone was fascinated. Putting everything else aside, just the fact that he could make the #1 expert listen to him was enough to make them fantasize endlessly. Wang Yu walked to the cabinet and pulled hard. The cabinet really moved. When Wang Yu moved the cabinet, everyone received a system notification. System notification. Your party has discovered the basement of the church. Obtained 1,000 experience points. Oh my, Sister Niu, you're good. Mingdu was the first to shout. Of course. Mu Zixin smiled and walked over. When she reached the entrance of the basement, Mu Zixin pointed at a stone beside the cabinet and said, "Who has mining skills?" "I do." Bao San raised his hand. "This stone is a rare or..." Mu Zixin said, "Really?" Bao San took out his mining hoe and hammered it a few times. System notification. You have obtained a rare or dark crystal. Damn, Sistanyo, I'm kneeling to you. Bao San shouted excitedly. Mu Zetian smiled and said, this dark crystal is the source of Andariel's corruption in the background story. It can also be found in normal dungeons. You can dig it up when you're in a dungeon in the future. TSK, an academic? You can figure out just by studying the background story? Wuji asked in surprise. Wang Yu smiled and said in the guild channel, she's the game's customer service. Everyone. No wonder. She's a GM. No wonder she didn't drag the team down, even though she wasn't strong. To place one's pride shouted excitedly. You two didn't cheat, right, Tisk? Wang Yu looked at to place one's pride with disdain. He didn't want to answer such a stupid question. Everyone knew that to place one's pride was joking. Everyone knew how strong Wang Yu was. He definitely didn't rely on the game's strategy. It was his ability in real life. If it was someone else, even if his father was the boss of Soaring Dragon Group, he wouldn't be so strong, let alone his wife who was just a customer service worker. The basement was the same size as the back hall. The decorations were the same as the back hall. After everyone entered the basement, the system gave them a quest notification. System notification. You have accepted the dungeon quest, Mastermind. Eliminate the instigator of the chaos in the church soul nightmare. Kashmir, 0 of 1. Quest reward, 15% completion. Chapter 182. A Genius in a Second Remember Love Go. We provide you with exciting novels to read. Character background. Kashmir was the president of Yu Huicheng Merchant Association and a leader that Yu Huicheng couldn't live without. His desire for money and life caused him to fall. Kashmir and the Dark Army worked together to occupy Yu Huicheng's land of faith. There were no monsters in the basement. There was only a desk and a bookshelf in the empty room. Kashmir was sitting at the desk, holding a thick book in his hands. You guys are here? Kashmir was not surprised to see the group. Instead, he asked kindly, a high-level NPC. Seeing Kashmir's expression, the group immediately thought of this term. In Rebirth, there were many types of NPCs. There were normal monster-type NPCs and service-type NPCs. They did not have much intelligence and were called low-level NPCs by the players. These types of NPCs would only do what they were supposed to do and did not have much intelligence. Bosses in manual mode were highly autonomous NPCs with high intelligence. However, they could only communicate with the players and were not very human-like. Players called them IQ monsters. The last type of NPC was no different from the players. They could communicate with the players freely and could even cheat the players of money. These types of NPCs were called high-level NPCs. Not only were these types of NPCs extremely intelligent, but their abilities were also unfathomable. Most of them were powerful NPCs with very high levels, such as Hermit and Yu Huicheng City Masters. The artificial intelligence of these NPCs could even pass off as real. Hence, the system was afraid that something would happen to them and kept them within a fixed area of activity. Love, go, little say, Netkahu would have thought that the final boss of the Scarlet Church would be such a powerful being? Thinking up to this point, other than people like Wang Yu and Yang Na who lacked gaming knowledge, the rest of the team had thoughts of retreating. It was not too late to retreat now. At most, they would fail the mission but not lose a level. This is bad. It's a high-level NPC. We can't defeat it at this stage, Bloody Rose said worriedly. High-level NPC? Is it powerful? Wang Yu asked, confused. Yes, it's powerful. The group nodded. Compared to Arceus? You're just bickering. Everyone was furious. Although Arceus was poor, he was still the leader of the Titans. That was an existence on the same level as the Holy Dragon King. Naturally, Kashmir could not compare to him. Wang Yu said, I'm not bickering. When I was doing the mission, Arceus' strength was forcibly reduced, so this guy's strength shouldn't be something we can't handle. Yeah, that's right. Upon hearing this, everyone hurriedly cast a detection spell over. Soul Nightmare, Kashmir, LV40, Gold Boss, Elite, HP, 500000 MP. 50,000 skills, Dark Catastrophe, Dark Wind. Love, go small, say, Netka talent. Mind control looks pretty average. Looking at its stats, everyone calmed down. Even though it was a high-level boss, its stats weren't as good as Andariel's. This is not a place you can come to. Go back. Seeing that the crowd ignored his words and was sizing him up instead, Kashmir said, "Go back. We fought so hard to get here, and you want us to go back?" Wang Yu replied with a smile. "This guy is really interesting. Ignorant people. You don't know how powerful the children of darkness are." Kashmir sneered. He put down the book in his hand and floated toward the crowd. The exports of Chuanjin spread out unhurriedly, forming a formation of 3 to 3. From Kashmir's attributes, everyone could tell that he was a mage-type boss. His two skills were AoE spells. Against such a turret-type boss, a normal formation would not work. Only by standing in such a way could they effectively avoid the area of effect of his AoE skills. Scientific principle. This is the position of the People's Liberation Army infantry. Chuanjin had been hunted down for years, so they came up with this unique formation over time. It could be used to attack and defend, and it worked every time. What is the meaning of this? It wasn't just the others who didn't understand where the Chuanjin people were standing. Even Baiming Yoyu and Old Een were confused. "Stop talking nonsense. Second brother, stand 337 to the left of Brother Chun. Old Yu, stand 286 to the right of Mingdu." Wuji skillfully reported some terrain coordinates and asked everyone to stand there. "What about me?" Seeing that everyone had a position, Wang Yu asked in confusion. "You go and tank the boss," Wuji said irresponsibly. If Wuji said this normally, people would definitely think that he had a grudge against Wang Yu. However, everyone present had seen Wang Yu's abilities and felt that it was natural. Even Wang Yu thought so. "All right, be careful, don't get killed," Wang Yu said. Scram. Everyone was furious. This guy was always trampling on the dignity of experts like them. Wang Yu chuckled and walked toward Kashmir. He extended his staff and blocked Kashmir. "Oh, a martial artist?" Kashmir was slightly stunned when he saw Wang Yu. Then, he said, "You're very strong. No wonder you dare to challenge me." Wang Yu replied, "Nonsense. I'm a player, and you're a monster. It's only natural for me to push you down." Kashmir choked on Wang Yu's words. He said awkwardly, "Although you're right, you're embarrassing me by being so direct." "So what?" Wang Yu never had a good impression of high-tiered NPCs, especially those who like to talk back to players. "Let's see how strong you are." Kashmir smiled. He raised his right hand, and a black whirlwind swept toward Wang Yu. As expected of a high-tiered NPC, he had inherited the extremely despicable style of the system, making a move as soon as he said so, not even bothering to greet him. Wang Yu always had a headache when it came to these kinds of skills. Magic was different from chopping and chopping. It could be parried. As long as one's body touched it, the system would determine that they had been hit. If it was a fireball or ice arrow, they could still use their weapons to disperse it. However, this kind of AoE magic was extremely difficult to dodge without movement skills. Wang Yu was only a few steps away from Kashmir. The whirlwind arrived in an instant. At the crucial moment, Wang Yu casually used a collapsing fist and dashed toward the whirlwind, avoiding it. Kashmir smiled. The black whirlwind swept toward the back of Wang Yu's group. Chuanjin's group also realized that this guy's target was not Wang Yu, but Wang Yu's group, bosses in manual mode, were all the same. When they attacked, they would pick the weakest targets. Fortunately, Chuanjin's group was prepared. Wuji laughed coldly and gave the order. "Tanks, raise your shields. Everyone, pay attention to your positioning." Chapter 183. Genius 1, second remember if you want to go. Talk.net, providing you with exciting novels to read. Whirlwind was very fast, and they didn't have the reaction speed of Wang Yu. Facing this kind of AoE magic, it was very difficult for them to dodge. After receiving the order, Een Lao Air raised his giant shield and blocked in front of him. The other paladins also cast halos on the squishy professions behind them. At this time, Whirlwind had already rushed in front of them. Xuanzhen's experts stood closer to the front. The three people in the front row were Chun Xiang, Wu Ji, and Yin Lao Air. Chun Xiang had added points to his constitution, and he had 6 demons as cannon fodder. Yin Lao Air was a shield bearer, and Wu Ji was a priest who could heal. With these 3 people together, even if they faced Whirlwind head-on, they wouldn't suffer many losses. What's more, these 3 people were standing in a wavy formation, so Whirlwind only brushed past them. It didn't touch them. Whirlwind passed the 3 people and rushed into the crowd. Before they could react, Whirlwind exploded, but because of their strange formation, it didn't cause any damage to them. Everyone was stunned, looking at Wu Ji and the others in disbelief. They were indescribably shocked. Formation was a necessary skill in clearing dungeons. There were the traditional square formations at the front and back, and also the encircling formation to deal with the high damage of the boss's single-target skills. These were all valuable experiences that players had learned from their experiences. Although these formations were good, they were still useless against the boss's AoE skills. Love Go Little say, Net Quinn traditional online games, bosses generally didn't have high IQ, and there would be prerequisites before they used their skills, so everyone could take the opportunity to dodge. However, in Rebirth, the boss in manual mode completely messed up the player's previous game sense. As a result, the AoE skills of bosses with low IQ became something that players were very afraid of. However, who would have thought that such a seemingly chaotic positioning would actually be so effective in dodging AoE skills? This was simply unheard of. North Ming Yu asked in the guild channel in surprise, Boss Wu Ji, how did you figure out this formation? After being chased a few hundred times, you'll learn by yourself. Wu Ji said, Wu Ji's boldness left Bai Ming Yu speechless. Being hunted down hundreds of times was as easy as eating a meal. How many enemies did Xuanzhen have? Originally, when Dark North Yu was being chased, she felt very sullen. Now that she thought about it, her trivial matter was really nothing in the eyes of Xuanzhen. That bloody rose isn't part of our guild, right? If she learns this positioning. Bai Ming Yu was a newbie after all, and her way of thinking hadn't been true yet. Wu Ji said nonchalantly, go ahead and learn. If they don't get hunted down hundreds of times, they'll only harm themselves if they learn it. Yes, it's very authentic. Bai Ming Yu was completely convinced. In a game, any proper guild wouldn't have this kind of experience. Love Go Small say, Netku after dodging Kashmir's Dark Whirlwind. Everyone didn't hesitate and immediately counterattacked. Wang Yu started fighting with Kashmiri after he threw out his skill. However, Kashmiri was very strange. His speed was not fast, but Wang Yu's punches would always hit nothing but air. It wasn't that he didn't hit, but when he was about to hit Kashmir, he would lose control of his body and sway to the side. This made Wang Yu very confused, and he thought he was imagining things. At this moment, everyone's skills flew over. The fastest was naturally Mingdu's lightning fall. The lightning clearly fell from the top of Kashmir, but it deviated to the side. Wang Yu did not take it to heart. He was a lightning mage, after all, so it was normal for his attacks to miss. Even Radiant City would not be able to hit his target every time. Yang Na and Baidi's arrows followed closely behind. Just as the arrows were about to hit Kashmir, they suddenly changed direction and shot towards Wang Yu. F*CK. Wang Yu was shocked. He raised his hand to block the arrows, but the skills of mages and warlocks also flew over. Just like before Wang Yu could even touch Kashmir, the skill suddenly deviated from its trajectory and smashed toward Wang Yu. Wang Yu lowered his head and leaped to the side, dodging with a strange posture. Just as Wang Yu steadied himself, famous sword Dao Xue and North Sea Yu, who were holding daggers at Kashmir's waist, stabbed at Wang Yu. Their eyes were filled with shock, as if they had been dragged there by the daggers. Wang Yu calmed himself down and used both hands. With a twist and a pull, he used grasping the bird's tail to send the two back into the formation. To place one's pride and Bao, San immediately stopped attacking when they saw this. They wanted to turn around, but they also lost control like everyone else. They swung their swords and fists at Wang Yu. Wang Yu spread his arms and used Wild Horse's mane to catch the two of them. He tossed them to the side and immediately jumped back. He looked at Kashmir in shock, his face full of shock. Wang Yu had seen many bosses, but he had never seen such a strange guy. His attacks were completely ineffective. How was he supposed to fight? The expressions of the others in the party were the same as Wang Yu's, but they weren't shocked by the boss's strangeness. They were shocked by Wang Yu's skills. F***CK. So many experts attacked at the same time, but this guy dodged it so easily. Is he even human? F***CK. This boss is not easy to deal with. This was the first time Wang Yu felt troubled by a monster in the game. After all, no matter how strong the previous bosses were, Wang Yu relied on his extraordinary skills to dodge and attack effectively. This Kashmir, on the other hand, had such a crazy skill that it completely suppressed Wang Yu. Wu Ji said, "This is called mind control. As long as you find a release point, you'll be able to do it." Release point? Yes, control-type skills are unique to bosses. These skills are usually very strong, but their flaws are also very obvious. As long as you find a release point, you'll be able to break it. Wu Ji said, Wang Yu had actually encountered this type of boss before. It was the undead king in the mine not long ago. His eyes of mineralization was a control-type skill, and the release point was the eyes. However, the undead king skill was much weaker than Kashmir's. Wang Yu relied on his superior martial arts and forcefully killed it from behind. Then where's the release point? Wang Yu asked Wu Ji. I'm not AF * King GM. You're asking me? Where is it, my wife? Wang Yu asked Mu Zixin again. I don't know. No one has defeated this boss during the closed beta. Mu Zixin shook her head. Wang Yu's forehead was full of black lines. This weird guy really gave people a headache. However, the more troublesome thing had yet to come. You ignorant people, you've angered me. Chapter 184. Genius 1, second remember if you want to go. Talk.net, providing you with exciting novels to read. F***CK. That's too shameless. Everyone couldn't help but curse. No matter how impressive the Chuanjin sect's scattered wavy line stance was, it was only for dodging ordinary bombs. However, this boss was actually playing as a human bomb. This guy must be from the western regions. Love go small talk, net ka run. Wu Ji shouted, and was the first to run. Everyone didn't care about the formation, and immediately scattered in a hubbub. Kashmir's movement speed wasn't fast, and as a boss in manual mode, he naturally wouldn't chase after a class that was harder to kill, so his first target was Wu Ji. Although Wu Ji was the first to run, he was used to showing off, so he stood at the front row. A cleric standing at the front row, even a system couldn't stand it anymore. As a matter of fact, Kashmiri was the first to attack him. F***CKU. Wu Ji had short legs, so Kashmir quickly caught up to him. Wu Ji did not have Wang Yu's heaven-defying skills. After being hit by 2 energy balls in a row, his HP bar was instantly emptied. However, Wu Ji's skills were not just for show. In a situation where he was being chased to death, he was still able to calmly throw out skills. The instant his HP bar was emptied, he could be seen cursing as he cast a healing spell on his head to keep his HP bar up. Seeing this, Chun Xiang pointed his staff and threw his demon in front of Wu Ji as cannon fodder. He also cast a distortion to block Kashmir's path. Taking advantage of this time, Wu Ji scrambled away. Although Chun Xiang's demon had a lot of HP, it couldn't last more than a few rounds against a boss like Kashmir. Soon, the 6 demons were annihilated by the sky, full of energy balls. After killing the demons, Kashmir circled around the distortion and chased after them. Wu Ji cursed as he ran. Did I offend you? Kashmir said humorously. No, but I think you're easy to bully. Damn you. Wu Ji wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Kashmiri once again chased after Wu Ji. Damn it. The energy ball came crashing down again. Wu Ji struggled to cast a recovery spell on himself, then closed his eyes and waited for death. Suddenly, a white gas rolled over, and Wu Ji was pulled in front of Wang Yu. Iron Ox. You're still the most reliable at crucial times. Wuji was so touched that he grabbed Wang Yu's hand and wanted to give him a hug. Get lost. Wang Yu hollered as he sent a thunderous kick towards Wuji, sending him flying. The knockback effect of Thunder Stomp was very strong. Even a boss like an Ariel could be kicked 2 to 3 meters away, let alone a small figure like Wuji. He was kicked 7 to 8 meters away by Wang Yu and flew to a safe distance. Kashmir still couldn't forget about Wuji. He turned around and chased after him again. Wang Yu blocked Kashmir's path with his staff. Kashmir's body was surrounded by energy balls, so he wasn't afraid of Wang Yu. He didn't even blink and directly charged at him. Wang Yu placed his staff behind him and fiercely faced Kashmir head-on. The energy balls around Kashmir still had gaps. Wang Yu's body was like a swimming fish, dodging the energy balls. He extended his staff and hit Kashmir with one end. Kashmir clearly didn't expect Wang Yu to be so fierce. He couldn't help but stop. Wang Yu's staff couldn't help but miss. Wang Yu, who had deviated from his original position, saw that he was about to be hit by the energy balls. He quickly pulled back his staff and knocked away the 2 energy balls. His other hand sent a chi wave behind him. Using the impact, Wang Yu flew out of Kashmir's energy ball range. In midair, Wang Yu was surprised to see a number appear above Kashmir's head. Dash 1452 huh? Wang Yu was slightly stunned. The chi wave hit me? Could it be that I can use a backhand skill without being controlled? Thinking of this, Wang Yu once again went up to face Kashmir. Kashmir looked at Wang Yu in fear and turned to run. Wang Yu flashed in front of Kashmir and backhanded him with his staff. Bang! Wang Yu had a taste of the physical attack. A damage value of minus 1975 appeared above Kashmir's head. At the same time, Kashmir threw a whirlwind, which smashed into Wang Yu's back. Wang Yu's chi wave shield was directly hit. At this moment, Counterattack Tiger shouted, "Old cow, delay him for 30 seconds. 30 seconds? Wang Yu rolled to avoid another attack from Kashmir and replied, I'll try. Okay. Counterattack Tiger had just obtained a piece of gold-grade equipment. Having tasted the sweetness, he wouldn't hold back at this time. Thus, he bent down and started to set up a trap. Traps were easy to set up. All he had to do was throw it on the ground. However, this magic trap had an extremely long cooldown of 30 seconds. If an enemy touched it within 30 seconds, it would automatically be deactivated. Thus, this thing was rarely used in battle. It was mostly used to trick people. Kashmir was a high-level NPC. After Counterattack Tiger finished setting up the trap, he felt threatened and subconsciously wanted to destroy the trap. Wang Yu gritted his teeth and faced him again. With Wang Yu's current attributes, it was naturally extremely difficult to delay for 30 seconds. Thus, he used his movement technique this time. Wang Yu's movement technique was very strange. He was able to avoid the attacks of the energy balls every time. However, in the eyes of the others, it was very familiar. This, big sister Qingxue, is Uncle Niu from the same sect as you? To place one's pride asked in surprise. To place one's pride's words, the others also noticed that the way Wang Yu dodged looked very similar to the way Yang Na lured Cerberus. These guys were also experts. Although they didn't know martial arts, they still had a very sharp eye. Meanwhile, Yang Na's face darkened in an instant. 7 steps on Astral Dipper. That was the Yang family's secret art. Not to mention outsiders, even if she was a member of the Yang family, because she was a girl, she could only learn a portion of it. How could Yang Na not be shocked when Wang Yu suddenly learned this set of movement technique? What surprised Yang Na even more was that Wang Yu's movement technique was much more skillful than hers. If it was Yang Na herself, she definitely wouldn't be able to last more than 30 seconds under such concentrated attacks. However, Wang Yu did it easily. Brother Chun, it's all up to you now. Wang Yu calculated that the trap was set up and hurriedly dashed out of the boss's attack range. Chun Xiang waved his hand, and the 6 demons surrounded him and took over the boss. Don't you want to explain something? After Wang Yu escaped, Yang Na walked over with an unfriendly expression. Haha, 7 steps of the Astral Dipper is indeed powerful. Wang Yu laughed. He knew this would happen. How do you know this movement technique? Yang Nan narrowed her eyes, filled with murderous intent. This? Wang Yu's expression was very awkward. He knew that secretly learning martial arts was a big taboo, especially in a big family like theirs. Sectarianism was very serious. If people found out about it, not only would they be punished, but their family would also be laughed at. If I said that I learned it myself, would you believe me? Wang Yu asked. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.